Like I say, I didn't know it was going to be bought by Disney, because this was summer of 2012. Then they announced that Disney had bought Lucasfilm around Halloween, which was October 30th. It was announced, and we didn't know who the director was going to be, and then they announced J.J. Abrams, and it all came out. It was all very, very exciting, and I hope people are happy. It seems like, because in Hollywood, remember, kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money. Now, I don't want to, a good example would be Transformers. And to be completely fair to Michael Bay, I have never seen a Transformers film. I know they're among the highest grossing films in Hollywood history. I saw a trailer, and I'm too old to process that much information. The thing looked like it was edited in a Cuisinart. If you try and count 1,000, 2, 1,000, and it's just mind-boggling. And they're cutting everywhere where you don't know where you are. It's cinema of bewilderment, But what I'm saying is, they keep making. All I'm saying is, I've never met anybody that's my age, or probably even your age, that say, "Oh, I love that movie." Most people are disparaging of that particular franchise, but they keep making them because they make huge amounts of money. And oh my God, I just realized this is all on film. But my larger point was, it doesn't matter if it's good as long as it makes money. So because The Force Awakens made a lot of money, I can't be. It's not ergo. It's good. When I read 8, I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character. Well, you're assuming that I train Ray.
Exactly. Sneaky.
Do I?
Sneaky.
I know, I have to be really careful. People say, was it difficult to pick up and wield a lightsaber again? And I go, do I pick up?
Is it difficult acting in this movie? Am
Well,
I in this movie?
I can promise you my part is twice as big as it was in Force Awakens.
Are you bummed that Luke didn't get sort of a reunion with Han Solo?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was reading it, I thought, if Leia's trying to mentally contact me and she's not successful, she'll rush to his aid. She'll get close to him and then get into some dire situation, and that's when I show up for a big yay, save her life. Then we rush to Han and are in the same position that Rey and Finn and Chewie are. Too late to save him, but witnesses. And I say, because it would carry so much emotional resonance into the next film. For us, his wife, his best friend to witness, instead of two characters that have known him, 20 minutes?
Have you been keeping Rey's secret from the beginning? Did you know about the parentage? Tell me about that journey of when you found out.
No. At the beginning, there was toying with an Obi-Wan connection, and then it really went, there were different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one. And then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy," and I was like, "Awesome." And then 2 weeks later, he was like, "Oh, we're not sure." So it kept changing. So then even I was filming, and I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be.
But this was incredible.
Fuck you!
What's up, all my Ewok trolls, droids, and Wookiees? It's Anna, also Mrs. Star Wars Girl, joined by my amazing co-host, Miss the one and only Jessi Milestone.
Woo! What is up, everybody? I know I'm not on camera.
Neither of us on camera.
Neither of us are on camera this week. It's because we don't feel like being, so.
You get to look at our professionally photographed faces.
That's right.
What do you think of my new intro, though? Do you like it?
I fucking love it. I was cracking up. I never heard that whole interview with the stuff that Mark Hamill was saying about Transformers. I was fucking cracking up. I'd never heard that stuff before.
Really? Yeah, I guess he was at an acting school, and he was giving the master's program an interview, and somebody like they asked him about like the success of The Force Awakens, and that's when he went into his little, just because it made money, it's not successful. And it's like, this is gold. This is gold.
You know what's funny about that though? It's so funny, like hearing about that. I know that Mark Hamill's done a lot of these like actors stuff recently. It's like, as an actor, he's the last celebrity I'd go to. Are these the last like actor? Not the last, but he's low on my list of people I would go to for acting advice.
Well, no, see, I would go if I was an aspiring actress and I wanted to know, like, this sounds absolutely terrible. I love you, Luke Skywalker. What not to do with my career and what choices he made along the way, so I could do the opposite of it.
It's harsh, but it's true. You make a valid point.
Because I mean, there's plenty of actors that like they started off with such potential. You know, they are in these movies that change the world, and they, you know who they are. Everyone knows who they are, but then their careers don't go anywhere, and it's like, what the fuck went wrong? Like, what did you do with your life?
One of the things that's really interesting about that too is if you look at like Mark Hamill, it's very similar to Daisy Ridley. How like he was nobody. You know, he didn't have any chops really. He didn't have any big thing on his resume. I don't know what his training was like. Daisy Ridley actually may have had more acting training than Mark Hamill did prior to Star Wars. But like, you know, Mark Hamill kind of rode that high. He was thrust into the spotlight and all this stuff. And unlike Harrison Ford was one of the only people who said, I'm taking the reins on my own career and doing something with this. Mark Hamill just got swept with the rush and then ultimately, fizzled out for those reasons. And I think a big part of it was getting thrust into that limelight prior to having really a resume, a real chops and whatnot. And all of a sudden, basically, you're this fledgling actor who's now a household name. And you kind of don't know what the fuck to do with it. And you almost lose the opportunity to then go and develop your craft as an actor, like an actor's actor, because you're already been thrust into this world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's some of my thoughts.
You know, and this was one of the weirdest like things. So I have like no aspirations to be an actor or an actress. Well, obviously I'm a woman, so I'd be an actress. No aspirations of it at all. Like I would not enjoy that type of life or that type of job and being on a set all day. Like just that sounds like absolute hell if I'm not, you know, the director or the assistant director. But I remember in high school, like I loved theater and I loved like drama class. And, you know, I would be in the plays if I had to be, but I liked all of like the backstage stuff and doing all that because it's live and it's in the moment and you all have to work together to make this one thing possible. And that's the only time I've ever enjoyed working in a group. But I always, always, always loved the show Inside the Actor's Studio with James Lipton because the things that he asks them, like getting to know, like how, like, you know, like watching, even like somebody like Alec Baldwin, you don't necessarily have to love all of his movies, but when you hear James Lipton ask him the questions about his life and the craft and like every single movie he's ever been in up to that point that he's being interviewed, and just the way that you learn about a person and how they think and how every single actor and actress are completely different on the way that they approach roles. And there might be some similarities, but the way that there's so many different ways to come up with a result of a character. And it was just absolutely fascinating, even though it's something that I'm not, you know, particularly interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'd be a really good, like, I think there's a lot of behind the camera roles that are very like creative and storytelling based in film that you'd be really, really good at for like a variety. Like I think you'd be a great, some of the things you'd be really, really good at too are like script supervisor or line producer, because those are the kinds of roles where like you're asked to be the anal retentive one who keeps everyone on track and keeps shit right and like, you know, makes sure that things, you know, everything's going the way it's supposed to and stuff like that. Or I've even said to you, like, if I ever do a film shoot, you would be my first choice for a first AD, because that person's job is like master, wrangle everyone, keep them on track. You'd be a good like script supervisor, like I said, or line producer, because you understand the art and the story and the story that's trying to be told. So you would be able to do your job in a way that was most conducive to that. Obviously you'd be great at like set and prop building and stuff like that. And I think you'd be great, you know, as a screenwriter. Not every screenwriter is someone who likes to sit down and map everything out in the story form. Some of the most, you know, the best idea people. I mean, George Lucas was that way. Like he could do a script. Treatment's really the actual script itself, but he could do like an outline, a concept. Like he was great at concept writing. I think if you actually learned, like if you actually took an interest in the art of screenwriting itself, I think would be really good at that too. Because I think you have that, like, you like, I don't know, puzzles is the right thing. You like that kind of challenge where like you'd be able to take your big idea and fit it into a pre-existing framework. I think you'd be really, really good at that.
I thought about it, but I mean, I always enjoyed, like, I remember that I thought I was going to hate it, but then I had to take a cinematography class in college, and I absolutely loved making a shot list. Like, I loved it. I could just I could picture, like, scene by scene how it would be. Like, they give you a script and they say, okay, make a shot list for this. And then they have, even though that's completely subjective on how it would play out, but, you know, on top of, you know, having to do a storyboard based on the shot list. And it's like, this is the way I think based on imagery, how to make this script and like this specific scene in the script the most impactful. And I absolutely love doing that. But I was debating on it. And for those of you that aren't aware of who Robert McKee is, he is like the go-to for screenwriting in Hollywood. Like, he has produced, I think, the most Oscars, and then the most, like, everyone that's taken his class, they usually become like pretty successful. He has the most names that come from his class that have become the most successful. Like, even David Bowie took his screenwriting test, and obviously David Bowie never, produced a Hollywood movie, but it helped him with his songwriting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what I just, even talking to you about some of these things and some of the things you've said, like, about that, just makes me feel like whenever I do a production, like next time I work on a production, I just want you part of it. Like, I want you script supervising. I want you helping with shot lists. I want you there. Basically, you have the job.
I'll be your first AD. But you know what was funny? When I was at my dad's ranch and I was walking through the orchard, and like I was trying to find a gopher hole because I was supposed to do that stream with Cecil where I ate the dirt.
Very Caddyshack.
But I was walking through it and I'm like, I could probably do a very low budget, but you know, if all I would have to do is like rent a good camera and maybe have like a few people there. But I could like probably write a horror movie, but like a kind of like a Silence of the Lambs, not like a Halloween type of horror movie, but then just have it like where it kind of, you know, revolves around this orchard, because I would have to shoot it there. And like, what happens if you're like just stuck in an orchard and like the sun's going down and there's somebody in there trying to get you? And like maybe there's something with you can't leave the property because your neighbors are assholes and you don't want to alert the neighbors' dogs, because I don't know. I was just walking around. I'm like, I could potentially do something really good with this, and you know, maybe not even for that much money.
Let's talk, because I love that type of shooting. Like you talked to me too about like that one that what was the phrase for it? Like contained single set kind of pieces. I really like those.
I do too.
We should work on. I know if I recommended this to you, is a movie on Netflix called The Circle. That's like that. That was really.
Let me write that down. What? Do you know what year that came out?
I think it was recent. Actually, it was proper. Justin introduced me 2017. Introduced me to it. Is that right? Or was that the one I'm thinking of? No. No. The 2017 one was because I was thinking there was the 2017 one. There was a big movie called The Circle with Emma Watson. This might just be called Circle, because this was an independent one, Netflix. It might be 2015. Yeah, it's maybe Circle enough. Let me find out. Hold on.
It's
Circle,
okay.
Now, 2015 movie called Circle.
Okay.
On Netflix. Fucking great. You would really, really like it.
I will look into it, because see, I like really old movies and like old TV shows. Like my favorite TV shows are from the 60s. And I love stuff that like they didn't have special effects back then. So like even Star Trek, it was like the computer chips are painted pieces of wood that look, when you see them in real life, I'm like, even Captain Kirk's chair, I'm like, this looks like a preschool toy, like a Fisher Price toy, but instead of plastic, it's with wood. And I like that kind of stuff where it's like you have to rely on a good story and good actors.
we've been watching through the old, starting from the beginning with the Twilight Zone, because Jeff's seen every episode multiple times. I haven't seen every single one, but it's something I watched. When the marathons were always on when we were growing up, I watched tons of Twilight Zone growing up. I love that. And I actually really love Richard Matheson. A bunch of his short stories are what they used for Twilight Zone episodes, including the very famous Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with William Shatner. And
there's something on the wing.
It was what?
There's something on the wing.
There's something on the wing. Which also, by the way, sorry, it was hilarious. They did these. Johnny Bravo did this parody series.
I love Johnny Bravo.
So Johnny Bravo had a parody series. It was like Johnny Bravo's Place Where Normal Things Don't Happen Very Often. And it was a fucking Twilight Zone Johnny Bravo parody, and it was excellent. It was so good. And what was it? I'm trying to think. Yeah, Johnny enters the zone where normal things don't happen very often. That's literally what it was called. The Man Who Cried Clown was there. 20,000 Leagues spoof. Nightmare 20,000. Or sorry, 20,000 Leagues. Nightmare 20,000 Feet spoof. It was so great. Anyway, but we rolled back the very first episode, which I love, the one where I won't ruin any twists in case people haven't seen them, because that's the thing, the twists still hold up. So the very first episode, there's a man who doesn't remember where he is, who he is, or anything about that, and is just in this empty town.
That's like the first episode.
It's the very first episode. That's what we're talking about. The very, very first episode. So we back and threw that on the other day, and I liked it. I liked the twist. I liked it when I had first seen it. But as we're watching it this time, I'm like, who is this actor? Because there are these scenes they just hold on his face for like 20 or 30 seconds, and you watch the run of emotions as he has some new revelation or some new fear, or is devolving into the madness of being in this empty world, and all that stuff. And it's like, we looked him up. He actually was a super prolific actor who won Golden Globes and was in everything. We had just never heard of him. But I'm like, that's TV used to be like that. Movies used to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that gets it right actually is The Boys, because I noticed that going back and watching some of these Twilight Zone episodes and then watching The Boys, where they do a lot of nonverbal storytelling. And that's something that we have lost. I mean, film, the whole point of making something film instead of writing it or putting it on the radio is that you have nonverbal storytelling elements. And so much of film has lost that.
Oh, I know. They rely so much on, like, let's put in painful dialogue, or let's like throw an effect in there.
Exactly. Big giant set pieces with huge special effects, and then fucking expository dialogue out the ass. Every time we get to the characters, there's no room for nuance or development because the characters are too busy explaining the plot to you, because the filmmakers forgot that they're using, a visual medium where they could tell you the shit, they can show you the shit instead of telling it to you.
Yep.
But yeah, we were super struck by that, like that particular actor, and just, oh God, we should work on some film projects together, because you and I and Jeff all have.
Did you watch my short film that I sent you? I can send it to you again if you don't have it. I'll link it to you. Let me find it. Well, no. So originally, there's a twist in it. So I had to have it. Obviously no special effects. I had to write the script. I had to it was for the cinematography class. So I had to do everything. I had to be the script right. I had to film everything. I had to cast actors. I had to
doing everything.
Direct them, which that's one thing I'm right there with George Lucas. I fucking hate working with actors. Actually, okay, the actress, she was fucking great. I said, hey, here's the script. This is like what you're feeling. If you like, this is how I see the movie. Or like,
I remember you telling me about this. I didn't realize you'd sent me a link for it, though. I definitely want to see it. Yeah, please.
Yeah, let me find it and I'll explain it to you. But so the teacher, he actually made me change the plot twist at the end, because he's like, this is where I thought you were going with it, and then this is where you went with it. And he's like, honestly, he's just like, this is way too like far. You can't do, like, he's like, you can do it, but he's like, I think it's gonna be too much stress, because he also knew I was taking more of the workload than I should have been. So he's like, just stop it right here, have that be the plot twist. And he's like, you're gonna thank me later when you're editing all of this together. And I was like, okay, because it cut down like an extra 5 minutes from it, but I would have rather had my ending.
So
But-
after I watch this, I really want to know what the original ending was.
I'll show you the original script for it if I can actually find it. I think I still have it, but so because even like when people read it, they thought I was going this one direction with it, and then
make it better that isn't that good subversion of expectation?
it was because it's like they think that it's gonna be this one thing, but then like when they read it, they're like, oh my god, I thought it was gonna be that, and I was gonna be like not disappointed, but like, oh, that's like very typical. But then it was my actual ending was like, oh fuck, that's just like a whole nother level. Like a Twilight Zone thing, and I filmed it in black and white as well.
So did you read the anthology stories in the back of Stealing Solo yet?
I have not.
Those you'll really like those because those are all Jeff's. What was it? Tales of the Crypt. Jeff's he's really into those ones, but all three of them have kind of dark twists to them. One of them is really effing good, and so you should definitely check out flip through the back and read through those stories. You'll really like them.
Okay, I found it. Oh my goodness, I just fucking hate it. The actress was fucking perfect. The actor couldn't even sit on a bench correctly. I was so pissed.
Dude, I was like, when I was doing my directing scene that I was doing, and I kept fucking trying to get my goddamn actor. One of them, the one who I didn't think was going to be a problem, I was like, you're speaking in a very affected way. Stop. Just talk like a regular person. He couldn't fucking do it. It was like, okay, so see this voice you're speaking to me in? Great. When you do your lines, do them like this. Okay. That's the voice, the Shakespeare voice. I'm like, no, stop doing that. And he fucking couldn't do it. It took like the entire time. All of his notes. Everything else was fine. So there's 100% of notes were like, just stop the fucking affected voice.
Oh, sketch therapy. I would play it, but the thing is, I don't want to give. So the actress and the actor both stabbed me in the back later on in life, and I don't want to give them any type of clout or platform because they both obviously were an aspiring actor and an actress, and they karma is a bitch to these two because it's like I never had any aspirations to have like a platform like I have now, and so the fact that I have one and they know that I have a YouTube channel, and they both tried to meander their ways back into my life, and I'm like, fuck you. So I wouldn't have a problem showing this, but I don't want to give them any kind of attention. Maybe if I edit it and I like cover up their faces, well, even then that's kind of fucked up because they did work on this, but I don't want to give them any type of attention, especially since I know that's what they want. But anyway, Jessi will watch it. Jessi will give me a consistency on it. But I honestly haven't watched this in like years. So I'm interested. I really don't want to watch it again because I don't want to look at either of their terrible, terrible, evil faces. But I'm interested to see what you say on it, and then I can't wait to like tell you how I actually would have ended because then you'll just be like.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear more about that.
Well, it would be because that would be my biggest problem is trying to find like actors or actresses to be in it after I figured out what I would want it to be. Because if it's on a ranch and if it's in an orchard, and which would be really easy, especially like where my dad lives, like if you hear like background noises like dogs barking or like cars driving by, like because it'd be in the distance, but it would be real, if that makes sense. That's why I like older shows like Bonanza and stuff like that, because it's like it's real. Like I know that that's a real tree. I know that that's a real house, as compared to now I'm like, is that a green screen? Like, what is it?
I hear ya. That's like even the last video, the one that I just put out yesterday. My green screen work I've been getting better about my screen because I don't have a frame to hang it in, and we don't have the room really or any place in the apartment where we can stretch it out fully. Plus cats. So every time I put it up, I'm like, I got to stretch it out. I got to try to smooth out the wrinkles. I got to try to make the cats not fucking play with it while I'm doing it. And this last one, I fucking nailed it. And I'm like, yeah, I could. If I had a realistic background shot here, you wouldn't necessarily know I was on green screen. I'm getting my green screen game on point. You're right. Actually, one of the things I have too is because I have been to the backlots so many times. I've been to the Universal one just, for the studio tour and whatnot for Universal because I love Universal. But I've worked back when I was working in catering. A ton of catering gigs go to the backlots. Like I worked at Warner Brothers when they were doing their international. They have a festival every year where they shop their TV shows to the international market. So I worked there for like a straight week once for that. I've done multiple events down at Paramount. And so it's just funny because I'm at the point where like, not only can I look and say, this is a set, but sometimes I can look and go like, that's the Universal backlot. Oh, that's the Universal backlot. Like, oh, that's that street on the Universal backlot. Like Jeff even had that the other day. He was like, is that the Universal backlot? I'm like, oh shit. I think that's Wisteria Lane from the Universal backlot. So I 100% hear you. And I love the richness of actually physically going into the physical world and doing something in it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can even just with, as much as I hate to talk about it in a positive sense at all, but in The Last Jedi, it's like, that cliff that Luke is standing on, that's real. Yeah, they probably did some edits with the backgrounds and the lighting, but I'm like, that grass that he's standing on is real grass. That's a real rock. That's a real cliff. Yeah. Or maybe I should have just said, in fucking Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks. Like, that's a real forest. Those are real redwood trees.
You can go to that forest.
You can go to that forest. I admit that forest.
That's another thing that I think is really cool too. Is like one of the great side effects for fans of when you do on location shooting is that there's a physical footprint of a place you can go. I mean, I loved going around New Zealand, even in the places where it was like land that they had restored to its original glory, which I thought was great. How they did so much conservation and preservation of the land when they were out there. I don't know. I don't know if it was on this stream or some other stream. I was talking about how like Queenstown is next to this river valley that's technically Queen's land owned by the Queen of New Zealand. I.e., basically, it's kind of basically a national park. It's protected land and whatnot. And so when they, Jedi Bunnies in the chat says, I want to go to that forest. It's so freaking. Well, I want to go to that one too. Actually, Jeff and I want to go to the Redwood Forest too. But so in the New Zealand one, it was cool because it was like one of the things they had to do was they had to promise to leave everything how it's the way it started, leave everything the way it was. So if they had to cut down any vegetation, they replanted that vegetation before they left. They did it were as minimally invasive as possible. And another thing they did as part of the deal to sort of sweeten the pot was they had to bring in a lot of like paths and stuff to bring in crew and equipment. They left some of those in place and even set up more to make basically accessible pathways so that everybody could walk through the land and stuff like that. Like that was so neat. What a great relationship to have where like you were respectful of the land. You didn't just come in and bulldoze a bunch of shit. You took care of the land and the property, and then you left. Not only did you leave it, you didn't leave it as it was. You left it better than you started with it. I'm like, that was such a nice thing.
That is like, okay. So here's the terrible thing. When I was younger, I read the Twilight books, and then I liked the Twilight stuff, and then I watched the movie, and I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? And then everyone else in the world watched the movie, and they're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And so I had to go, my mom and aunt, and everyone that I knew basically got obsessed with it, but my mom and aunt especially. And so one summer, we spent a month going to all of the Twilight filming locations.
Nice.
And so to cleanse my palate from cuties, like I was like, I have to watch something that's so bad that it makes me forget about cuties. So me and Jizz watched the Twilight movies. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bad, but it worked.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like looking there, and he's just like, have you been there? Have you been there? And I was like, yes. And I'm like, every scene you've seen in Twilight that wasn't on a set, I was there. And I was like, you see where the vampire dude is standing? Yeah, it's a few feet over. That's where I stood because they had a barrier saying you can't walk past this.
That's hilarious.
They're in the forest, and he's like, say it. And she's like, vampire. I stood there. I went over the barrier because nobody was there in the forest, and I stood there.
That's fun.
But so yeah, as much as like that was like, okay, they filmed it in real places and you can tell, but I'm like, this is the movie I do not want to I would rather go to any other filming location than the damn Twilight ones again, even though it was beautiful and I got to see some pretty places, but I'm like, ugh, Twilight.
It's a beautiful part of the country. That was like we were up in when I had a tournament in Seattle, and Jeff came up with me, and we were driving. The tournament itself was a little bit outside of the main city, and we're just driving along the river and looking at the trees and whatnot. And we were both like, yeah, geographically, like in terms of the weather, in terms of the nature and all that shit, it's an area of the country you 100% could live in.
I couldn't do all the rain. That's weird. I do not. I like the smell of concrete, like when it's been rained on. I really like that.
Did you know that's the word for it? I love that's one of my favorite words, petrichor. It's the smell of the earth after the rain.
Okay, well then that is like one of my favorite scents. So
it's a wonderful smell. Petrichor. It's because it comes from the petra, which is like rock and petrified and whatnot, because that's what it is. The rain mixes with the natural minerals in the rock and the dirt and stuff like that, and that's what that earthy like smell is. Oh, I love that. Yeah, great.
Well, what was I going to say? Well, most of Twilight was actually filmed in St. Helens. Like they only filmed a little bit in Washington, and then it was mostly in California, a few places in Oregon and Portland, because that's where like the vampire dude's house is. That's where they had the prom. And then like we went to Forks, Washington, and the beach and stuff, but they didn't film it there.
Yeah, but then it's just mostly Northern California then.
Yeah, like basically everything's in St. Helens except for like.
Now, is St. Helens north enough to be considered the Pacific Northwest, or is that still just like NorCal?
And it's just NorCal.
That's fair.
It's beautiful though. That's where they filmed Halloweentown.
Cool. That's neat. I haven't seen a movie in forever.
I know. So they actually on Halloween they started doing it again, where they turn the entire. Well, they usually always turn it back into Halloweentown for Halloween. And what's her face? She goes Marnie. The actress that played the main character in it, she goes there and you can like meet her. But cool. I heard that she's kind of a bitch, and I had a booth right like across from hers when I do my like Halloween convention, and yeah, people like I guess it's like $40 to like get her autograph and like say hi to her and whatnot, and like people. I guess she does kind of have a reputation for being kind of a bitch. So I'm like, oh no, that makes me sad.
I paid less than double that to fucking meet Alan Tudyk. So like, I think it was like $80 to meet Billy D. Williams or something like that. It was like, you're nobody. Why are you charging this much money to have people say hi to you? You're not that special.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm sure like on Halloween in Halloweentown, like that's when everyone comes in and like.
Oh God, I'm sure it's exciting there. Yeah.
But I saw somebody ask earlier, I guess I'll talk about this and then we'll close up this topic. But the film that I did, it was about a brother and sister, and the brother left. He took off when he was old enough and left the sister there. And the parent, I can't remember if it was both of the parents died or one of the parents died, but they're having a conversation and she's trying to find out why he left, but she also hates him because he left her with them. And they were not good people. But then you find out, like, the thing is, like, why did the brother leave? And so that's, like, the thing. It's, like, you're trying to figure out why. And, like, when it's, like, oh, our parents died. You came back for the funeral. Where the fuck have you been? And that's something that I feel like everyone can kind of get invested in. It's very simple very simple plot as far as, like, the setup and whatnot. Very you can understand why a sister would be frustrated that the brother took off and they haven't heard from him in years, and parents are dead. Sounds like an Oscar nominee. Well, thank you.
It's a great.
If they had my original ending, it might have. Well, even then, they probably would have said this is way too crazy, Anna.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Let's take a look at it. Like I said, I want to watch this. I want to take a look at the original ending and the original script. If it's something, that's something I love the idea of, is like going back and updating, older projects. I have a horror film that I shot I don't think I ever showed it to you. I shot as my senior project. Same kind of thing where it's like way too much to do for it because I was the director, the screenwriter, the editor, the producer, all of that shit. And I want to go back and remake it as a feature. But like, yeah, I mean, if there's a lot to it, it does sound like a solid premise. So yeah, I mean, if there's a lot to it and it's a simple set, let's go back and remake it with the original ending.
Let's see. No, they're not the Lannister siblings. It's no. It's very much the opposite, and like because it's one of those things. It's like when you're related to somebody by blood, and you're supposed to love them, and how just because you're related, and it's ingrained in you, you're almost programmed to love your siblings. But what happens when your sibling did something that you can never forgive?
Yeah, I like that. It's such I love that. I love stories that put the main character in like a moral dilemma between what they're supposed to do, between what they're quote supposed to do and what they feel. I always think that's really fascinating, because it's usually what ends up happening. I think it's very true to life. It's usually what ends up happening is the character at some point discovers that the truth is somewhere between the two. And that's, I think, again, true to life, and that nuance is there and exists. I always think it's just always an interesting one to go to, because it's something very, you can set it in almost any type of premise, but the struggle itself is very accessible and relatable,
Yeah, and I mean, that's a thing. It's like before all these special effects happened and people were so reliant on them, it's like how do you make a film that is compelling, that somebody's going to sit there and give, potentially an hour of their life, and how are you going to keep them entertained for an hour? And this is why I feel kind of like the art of storytelling has been lost. And that's why it's like, I have no interest in new movies, because I'm like, it's all just going to be special effects. It's going to be sound and, lighting. And it's going to be like, ooh, look in this room that's empty for no fucking reason. And it's like the music is playing, the lighting is changing, and it's zooming into this one thing. And it's like, oh my God, what's going to be that one thing? And then like the character comes and picks it up and like clicks the pen and then starts writing. It's like, so you just built that up and nothing, like there's no payoff.
Right? There's no understanding. I mean, we have all these movie tropes that exist for a reason, like Chekhov's gun and all these ideas of foreshadowing, things that, MacGuffins, red herrings, all these great filmic concepts that people like your Alfred Hitchcock's brought to filmmaking, that, these people were there are heroes for a reason, that the filmmakers we always go back to for a reason, because they brought in these interesting, fascinating tropes that made filmmaking different. And it's like, we're so beyond, this loss of creativity. We're not even utilizing those, filmmakers today aren't even utilizing the existing tropes for better filmic storytelling. They're using no storytelling techniques whatsoever and just expecting us to like it because, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, we're not
and it's
that
frustrating.
stupid.
I would rather have a very ugly filmed movie and have it be like the best story I've ever heard,
Absolutely.
as compared to having like something that's like, in my little intro with Mark Hamill saying, oh yeah, Transformers. You don't ever hear anyone say, I love this movie. It just makes
my favorite movie. It's my favorite movie ever, or I can go back and watch it over and over, or anything like that. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like my favorite movie is Silence of the Lambs, a movie that came out in the 90s, and it's 100% because of the story, and also, they had, and that was the perfect cast. Like, it's very rare when you have a perfectly casted film. Like, there's always someone that like throws a movie off. Like, even like The Dark Knight. What's her face? Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Maggie Gyllenhaal's terrible.
That's terrible.
That's my Gladiator. 2000 came out in 2000. Great story, perfect movie in my opinion. No wasted moment, no wasted anything. And again, perfectly cast. There's not a single casting choice I would change. I thought Connie Nielsen was brilliant. Russell Crowe was perfect. I fucking loved to hate Joaquin Phoenix in that movie.
God, you creep me out so much.
Senators, Derek Jacobi. Even the little boy that plays Connie Nielsen's son is freaking adorable. And pretty solid too. Like, it's just a perfect movie, and with such there's so many. The action is excellent, but there are so many great quiet moments that are equally as riveting and tense.
Mm-hmm. Well, what kind of, if you could do, like, let's say, because I actually I'm with Robert Rodriguez on this, where it's like, every filmmaker should have a very limited budget, like at least on one movie, so that way you learn how to push the dollar to the like most extent, like with him, and I think that was what movie is that? Why am I blanking? I know exactly what movie it is. I just can't remember the name. Oh my god, fuck, I don't remember. Okay, well I'll use Quentin Tarantino, like with Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah,
Like
and that's why I always say I think Reservoir Dogs is Tarantino's best film. He had the most restrictions on it.
And like, do you even know this? So you remember the ear cutting off singing the song in that?
Oh yeah, Stuck in the Middle by Steelers Wheel. I love that song.
Oh, so his like the entire backstory on how he got that song. He was like, this is the song that I want. This is the song that's going to give the scene the most impact. Like, this is the song for this scene, but it's going to cost like X amount. And that's my entire music budget for the entire thing. And so then he's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to do it. We're going to use it. Just film it. Just do it. And I'm going to figure out how to get this. And then he found a loophole with something. There was like money for producing a soundtrack for the movie. So he's like, well, we're not going to make a soundtrack for the movie. So that budget that would have been for making a soundtrack, we're going to put it into like this song.
And you know what? That song is so perfect. And like, I'm lukewarm on Tarantino. There are things I love. There are things I hate. Reservoir Dogs is hands down my favorite film of his. And that moment, that song choice has inspired my filmmaking a lot. That is that the tonal incongruity that he goes for, I don't know this fucking word, the way the tone clashes, or the way the song clashes with the tone of the scene, that clash I fucking love. I eat that up so much. That's one of my favorite sound choices as a filmmaker, and I've utilized that idea. Like, that's been so inspirational to me. So I'm fucking glad he did that. That's sometimes Tarantino leans into these ideas and he's like, it has to be this way, and he's fucking dead ass wrong. And you're like, why did you think that was a good idea? That was one where I'm like, I'm glad he stuck to his guns, because he's 100% right on that one. I mean, everybody knows that song. Everyone knows that. People who haven't seen the movie know that scene and know that song is part of that scene, you know? And people who hear that song now, like I think I knew that song for years before I ever saw it, Reservoir Dogs, and I still think of that scene whenever I hear that song, you know?
I know. I mean, it's so perfect for it. And like, even I see his dancing.
I literally was about to say, I see his little dance, his little shuffle. I fucking love it. It's, oh God, yeah. I'm just agreeing with literally everything you're saying about filmmaking and Rodriguez. I didn't know he had that stance about low budget filmmaking. It definitely is something that shows in his work. And I think maybe because of that perspective, I haven't seen as much of his stuff as I have Tarantino's, but I think that's why some of his concepts, even though they're very
my God, Angry Panda, fuck you. My makeup is done.
What? Oh,
he said something about Anna's not on camera because she didn't do her makeup. Hey, I would just like to say it. My hair is done. My makeup is done. I am not in pajamas.
First of all, also, I just like to say real quick, unless you're a person who regularly puts on makeup in your daily life, do not fucking comment on people's decisions to wear or not wear makeup, because you don't know how much work goes into it. You don't know how much of a pain in the ass it is to do it. And so I always hate that, how people are so fucking ungrateful about shit like that. I'm not saying Angry Bad is. I'm sure he's just joking and stuff like that. But I always hate when people are we're like, when people get super shitty about, you're not wearing makeup, you don't look as good, you look this, you look that. I'm like, you never fucking take the time out of your day. Like, how many hours of your day do you spend making yourself look good? If you don't put that much fucking time into looking good for me, don't fucking say shit when I don't put that much time into looking good for you. That's all. I always hate when people do that. It's like, fuck you. You wear no makeup. You never put on makeup. So unless you're spending that much time like trimming your facial hair and shit like that, don't even talk. Don't even.
I'm trying to remember what. I'm going to Robert Rodriguez's IMDb to try to figure out that movie, because I don't think it was Desperado.
The only title of his that's coming to me right now, because he did, what was his Grindhouse contribution, was Planet Terror, right? It was his. And Planet Terror, and then didn't he actually, was he the one who actually wrote From Dusk Till Dawn? I know he was like, that was his movie as well as Tarantino's, right? From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, cool. Tarantino was in it, and I think he did.
He might have had a producing credit on it or something like that, but that was really more Rodriguez's film.
Okay, it was Desperado. So he had like no budget for. I think he had like under $100,000, and he didn't get permits to film anything.
I love that. I do love hearing that about like the guerrilla filmmaking. They just, I love doing that.
I mean, if I did a film and I did it like on my dad's ranch in an orchard,
Yeah.
Well, I really wish it was still when my parents divorced, my dad like sold some property because like obviously he didn't want my mom to get some stuff. So, but on this one orchard that we had, there was this like nuclear bunker.
Mhm.
So it's like this it's not like it's like a nuclear power thing, but then there's like a bunker in it. And I thought it was the funniest thing because the bathroom in it, it's like, there's no toilet, but what you do is you go and you like poop in the center of this like little room, and then you leave the room and you push a button and it ignites like the poop into like and puts into smithereens.
Oh my God.
And then ejects it from the room. And I'm like when I was a little kid, I thought that was the funniest shit ever.
I mean, it is pretty funny shit, and it gives a whole new meaning to the phrase "explosive poop." So.
Oh yeah. But so like it's
Side note: did you know? Because I was just looking up his filmography real quick. First of all, did you know Robert Rodriguez is the guy who did Spy Kids?
Yeah.
I had no fucking clue he did Spy Kids and The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava. I had no idea that in addition to all his brutal, ultra violent films, that he fucking did fucking Spy Kids. I also didn't realize he was the director for Alita.
Yeah.
I never realized that. That makes me like him even more than I already did.
Yeah, well, see, I love Spy Kids. Like, that's obviously the first thing that I had ever seen of his. And then, like, I love the fact that him and Tarantino are best friends because
I think that's great.
You can really tell in their filmmaking.
There's some things about them that's so similar, and there's some things that are so strikingly different. But yeah.
Well, I feel like Tarantino, he has like, okay, this is the beats, the movie beats. So you have this, like the violence is gonna, happen in a certain manner, and that there's gonna be like the great dialogue, and then shit's gonna hit the fan. Whereas with Robert Rodriguez, it's a little bit different in the way that he does things, because there is, not to say there's not violence, but it's not.
I like the way he threads his narratives together. Like Tarantino very much favors nonlinear storytelling and jumping around timelines and perspectives and stuff, which I do enjoy sometimes, but I like the way Rodriguez tends to like, he kind of starts out very, I would say almost like relaxed. Like he sits back into his world and goes, here's the world, hang out. And then like I like his pacing. I feel like his narrative structure is a little more streamlined, but he builds his pacing really, really well during it. So he's like, here's my world, check it out, and we're off to the races. And then just kind of builds and builds and builds, and knows how to really ramp up his the intensity.
Yep. Did you like Sin City?
I really did, actually.
Me too. I loved it. I was told, oh, you're not going to like that movie. And then I watched it. I was like, what the fuck? Thanks, Mom. You postponed me from seeing this amazing movie by a few years because you told me I was going to hate it. Right. Fuck that, Mom. Bad advice.
Which is funny, too, because that sort of, it came out in that era where, like, the graphic novel adaptations were really big, and I didn't love a lot of those. I really liked, I loved the 300, which kind of kicked a lot of that off. And but then outside of the 300, I wasn't super fond of a lot of the other ones. Like even Watchmen was just for me.
I hate Watchmen. I fucking hate Watchmen.
I'd never go back and like voluntarily watch it again, but I didn't hate it when I saw it. And I did read the book and all that too.
I absolutely hated it when I watched it. I remember I went to the midnight premiere, and me and my best friend at the time, we went and saw it. We're waiting. And then I just remember I was like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. And then her mom was supposed to pick us up, but because it was a midnight premiere, the movie was long, it didn't get out till the middle of the night. And her mom fell asleep.
Oh, fuck. That sucks.
And so we waited for like an hour, and it was freezing cold. And then I was like, you know what? It's like a mile, or I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 miles to where I lived, and like compared to where she lived. And I was like, let's just walk to my house. And, because I mean, I was like, there's no way your mom's sleeping, because we waited the first hour, and we're like, okay, we've been calling her. She's obviously asleep. She's in a deep sleep. She's not waking up because it's the middle of the night. Yeah. If she comes and we're not here and we had already waited an hour, like she can't really get mad at us. Exactly. So like, let's just walk, and the walk is going to warm us up because we were freezing.
Oh, God, yeah.
But Oh my gosh. So on top of seeing that terrible film, that's my memory of it. And then Peaches, he hadn't seen it. And so he was like, oh, I'm going to watch it. I was like, it's the worst fucking movie ever. And then he was watching it and he's like, you're right. This is the worst movie ever. And I was like, thank you.
Vindicated. Funnily enough, they're going back to Sin City. I took a long time to see it for different reasons because I thought I was not going to like it. Because I didn't like a lot of those comic booky movies coming out around the time. And then I had enough people tell me, give it a shot, that I finally did. And I was like, fuck, this is great. I heard the sequel holds up. Still haven't seen the sequel, but I've heard the sequel.
Sorry, to which movie?
Sin City.
Oh, I haven't seen the sequel either, but I loved the first one. And that's kind of why I didn't watch the second one. Because I'm like, I loved the first one so much. So I don't know how the second one is going to hold up. And I really don't want to be disappointed.
Exactly. Exactly.
How do you feel about Guillermo del Toro?
Guillermo del Toro? I like him to an extent. I do think he gets overhyped, and I do think sometimes he buys into his own I don't know if he buys into his own hype so much as I think sometimes he gets lost in his own visual worlds. So I don't love his visual contributions to the Hobbit franchise, for example. But I really loved Labyrinth, Pan's Labyrinth. So like and actually I really loved, what was the one he did, which I actually like better than Pan's Labyrinth was it's a Spanish title, but it translates to The Devil's Backbone. And it's sort of very similar thematically to Pan's Labyrinth. But it doesn't have the whole second fantasy world. It deals with a ghost child instead, but it's that same, Spanish Civil War, really brutal, graphic, gritty, real presentation. So if you guys, anyone in the chat who likes Pan's Labyrinth, if you haven't seen Devil's Backbone, whatever its Spanish title equivalent is, 100% check it out.
I know, I haven't heard of that. Devil's Backbone.
What?
I haven't seen that.
You'll like it too, because again, it's one set. It's set at someone says Culo del Diablo. That might be the Spanish title, but let me see if I can look it up real quick. You'd like because it's set in just an orphanage.
I found it. Yeah, he wrote it. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I have seen scenes in this. I haven't watched the entire thing through, but you say it's good?
It's really good. We watched that. We used to do my house in college. We didn't have dorms. We had houses because we were too small. So each house had like 30 to 50 kids in it, depending on the size of the house. And we would do Sunday night horror nights. And this is how I saw this one.
See, this is why I didn't watch it, because it's got like a ghost or something, right?
Yeah,
second that there's a ghost in a movie, I'm instantly uninterested.
You'll give this one a shot.
I will, because it's like Guillermo del Toro.
It's really, and the way they use the ghost is very different than any other than I've ever seen before. It's not, the funny thing is for a movie that's technically a horror film and has a ghost in it and shit, it's tonally much more like Pan's Labyrinth than like a traditional horror film or like a Grudge movie or something like that. So El Espinazo del Diablo is the Spanish title.
I like how we have like the most American accents when we say this.
El Espinazo del Diablo. I have no fucking El Espinazo del Diablo.
Is it in English or in Spanish?
It was in Spanish. I don't know if there's a dub.
It won't bother me if I have to read subtitles.
I saw it subtitled. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I saw it in Spanish. International.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, horse ghosts are an exception, but that's not because that's not set in the real world. So I don't believe in ghosts. And when I watch a movie and the theme is around a ghost and it's set in the real world, it's not like a sci-fi or a fantasy movie and there's some kind of magic or like alien element to it, I'm immediately uninterested. Like even when it's like a horror movie and it's like, oh, the thing is like a ghost that's coming and gonna kill them. It's like, it's a fucking ghost. Like, really? So
whatchamacallit? what was I going to say? I have had too many unexplainable experiences to not believe in the supernatural. Let's put it that way. If anyone ever wants to ask or ask me about the things that have happened, the unexplainable occurrences, some as recently as like last week, just ask, because I have a plethora, and you can believe in them or not, or doubt the veracity of my story, or look for another explanation.
Well, I think that that's exactly, I always think that there's another explanation. And so it's like, well, I might not be able to explain it, but I can, you know, I know that there's someone or something that can explain it. And so
Sure, like I'm sure there's a logical explanation for, you know, the indentation and weight of a human body sitting on the edge of my bed when there's nobody in the house. I'm sure there is. I just haven't found one yet. So it's I'm not. It's one of those things where like it's such an interesting topic because there's so little proof on either side. You know, like there could be a logical explanation for why that sensation happened or experience happened, or it could be in my head or something like that. But
here we go. So this theory, there are dimensions that we aren't able to perceive. Okay, so they've had plenty of Star Trek episodes about that, where there's different dimensions. So one, let's say you're interacting with someone, or you're there and nobody can see you, and it's because you're on a different plane of existence, and they can maybe be able to hear you, but they can't see you, but you can see everyone. You can't touch anything or do anything. They've had plenty of episodes of Star Trek that have kind of the same premise and plot. Yeah. That isn't somebody's dead and they're a ghost. That's that they're trapped in this other dimension that is scientifically explainable within that episode of Star Trek. Yep. That doesn't bother me. But when it's like a movie and it's like The Grudge, and it's like, oh, this house is haunted and there's ghosts in it because of that, I'm like, no, this is, I didn't even find that movie scary. I was like, it was just stupid.
Sometime you and I should go to my childhood house and like spend a weekend like going in the places at night that always like were the most active places, in my experience, in my home at night. Because
I'll put this on the table for you. I really want to go to Gettysburg.
Well, oh shit, that's an interesting place. But I want to say, because I grew up in this house is almost 200 years old, and it's, from my experience and the experience of everyone else who's heard been in it, is super fucking haunted. And so I'm interested, not just because like I want to prove you wrong, but I'm really interested to have somebody who does not buy into that at all be in this environment that, to me and people I know, have been like, this was one of the really interesting things, was my sister and I had never talked about that with each other, had never talked about our house being haunted or ghostly presence or any shit like that when we were growing up at all. About a year or two ago, a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 now, I was home for something and she was home, and she had been working. She had just worked on some like documentary her friends had done on like ghost hunters in Cleveland. It was interesting. It was neat the way they filmed it. But basically, she was the sound person, so she learned all their like EVP stuff and things like that. And so she came home. We're like, oh, let's try some of this stuff out. And so we were like, let's go to the most, we never, like I said, we never before talked about our house being haunted. I was like, well, our house is super haunted. She was like, yeah, I know. And we're like, all right, well, let's go to the most haunted spots in the house. We 100%, again, no, predetermination or anything like that, 100% agreed on all of the places we felt were the most active and the most like negative in terms of that kind of stuff, which was weird.
I feel like in this situation, it's like if we were on the X-Files and you're Mulder and I'm Scully, and I'm like just completely like, no.
Exactly. So we had things like Jeff came and stayed, and there's an almost intolerable feeling of being watched on my 3rd floor that most people have experienced. We both did. It was like one of the first nights. I don't know why we were lying in bed. Like I was stretching or something, and I held my arm, but I was like, that's weird. If you reached your arm about 2 feet over the bed, it felt like you stuck your hand in a stream of cold water. And he put his hand up. I just said, stick your hand up. And without telling him anything, he said, why is it so cold up there? Or whatever. He said the same thing. We were up there at one point. We both heard a noise. I heard a bang. He heard a voice the exact same time, like completely different sounds, clear as day, no other like noise.
See, that just makes me feel like there's something going on, that maybe there's something within the construction of the house, and that's why that feeling of cold is there. Maybe there's a pipe. Maybe there's some kind of magnetic thing. I'm not a scientist, so I can't exactly explain it, but that is immediately when you started describing that, that's what that sounds like to me. Or there's some kind of water pipe, which I don't think that that would make sense as to why that would be on the third floor ceiling, but I mean, it's possible.
It's fair, but I mean, just it's stuff growing up too that's like, you know, you have like, I mean, when I say almost unbearable feeling of being watched, like growing up, I couldn't go into our basement and you say, oh, you're just scared and this and that. I lived in this house, went all over it and whatnot. There were parts of the house, just, it didn't matter what the light, didn't matter the room, it didn't matter the this. There were just parts of the house where, like, if I had my headphones in, for example, there were parts of the house where I could, and there were parts of the house I could not even listen to my headphones because it was the feeling that like someone was there was so overwhelming. The feeling you get when like someone's in the room but you can't see them was so overwhelming that I would have to keep pausing and looking around to see who just walked in the room. That kind of thing. So it's like,
where was this room located in the house?
All different ones. I'm saying it didn't matter. Like, so.
Well, maybe somebody was watching you and you just didn't like. Where's the house? Like, 100% sure that nobody was there. Yeah, there's no baby cams.
One of them specifically, we never had baby cams. We never had any kind of camera in the house. One of them specifically was like we had a.
That you know of.
No, my parents didn't know technology enough to be able to do that shit.
Siblings.
So siblings didn't care. Definitely wasn't a thing in our house. My brother was the only one who would have done something like that.
Maybe your parents bought the house from a person that's a psycho pervert and implanted cameras inside your house to watch you.
No, because we wouldn't. When they bought the house, wireless technology didn't exist. So you wouldn't have had the wireless technology.
Maybe you are the victims of a governmental experiment and they're watching you guys and you guys are their lab rats.
Could be. But I mean, there's those feelings and some of the differences translated to.
But as ridiculous as that theory is that I just made up, I am more inclined to believe that than to believe that there's a ghost.
That's fair. Everyone's got to believe what they believe. I just think that would be really interesting to have.
I'll wear my "I want to believe" T-shirt on this little.
Well, because I think it'd be really interesting again to have you in that situation, just so because then you still can't necessarily explain some of these things, so you still may come away feeling like, well, there's a logical explanation. You still probably will. But it'd be really interesting to see which things you experience as well as me. Even if you're looking for a logical explanation to it, it would be really interesting to see if you experience those same things.
And your parents still live in this house?
Yeah, they still live in this house. We can go there. Like anytime you want to change to Philly. That's honestly like if you ever came to Philly with me, that's where we'd stay.
I'm like the selling point of getting me to your parents' house is the giant dog.
Well, yeah, that too. There's a dog that's bigger than you there, so.
Yeah, and I can take a pic. I wouldn't like sit on his back like he's a tiger, but I would sit next to him and.
Actually, you would be too short to even straddle him and have both of your feet touching the ground.
Oh my God, that's a big ass dog.
Like I could do that. I could take a picture where he's in between my legs, but you couldn't.
He looks like a normal dog next to me.
Yeah, he looks like a regular dog.
Oh my God.
Only time Oscar's ever looked small. But he loves it. It would be so funny watching him try because he loves, I don't know, big dogs love doing this. He loves walking between your legs. I don't know why, but Tien Dill, not like a warg, he's a Newfoundland. He's a Lancier Newfoundland, and he's beautiful.
Oh no, like one of the it's all white, but they're like giant, like Grand Pyrenees.
Great Pyrenees, yeah.
Great Pyrenees. So my this is one of the things, like, so me and my dad, when I was staying there, we were walking his dog and we're walking around the orchard, and then he's like, oh yeah, the neighbor has a border collie, a chihuahua. The chihuahua is obviously the loudest damn one, and he's like, and they just got a Great Pyrenees puppy. And we're walking up and the dogs are all seeing us. And he's like, well, let's cut before we get to the dogs. And I'm like, no, I want to see the puppy. And we're getting closer. He's like, that's the puppy. I'm like, Dad, that's a full grown dog. And he's like, no, that's a puppy. They just got it. And we get up there and I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is a puppy.
Yep.
I'm like, this is a full grown dog size.
When my parents,
big ass dog.
My parents brought home Oscar at about 8 weeks and he was like 18 pounds.
Oh my God. Yeah. Tulip's not even 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Why did they get such a big dog? Was it like security reasons, or they just like big dogs?
Nope. My dad always kind of liked big dogs. My parents had a Briard when we were born, and I don't know if you're familiar with Briards. They're beautiful. They're French sheepdogs. And he was a really nice one. He was one where it was like he was from a show breeder, and they got him super cheap because he was born without dew claws or something, like some little like innocuous mutation that just made him ineligible to be a show dog. so they gave him, they basically gave him what's like off the track thoroughbreds. They gave him away for pennies on the dollar. And they had this beautiful dog, but he was not great with kids. He was a little nippy, like, and a little neurotic. So when he died, my dad really wanted a big dog again, but they wanted to make sure they wanted a child-friendly one. And so they were reading about, so he was reading, and Newfies kept coming up as like the gentle giant, really good with kids, very sweet disposition, no aggression, no human aggression, no aggression with other dogs and stuff like that. And they figured, for a house with 3 young kids, that would be the perfect kind of dog to check all the boxes. So they got one, and he checked all the boxes, including the slobber on the ceiling and shed incessantly box. My mom's chagrin, but we fell in love with the breed, and so Oscar's their 4th Newfie, because they had, after Sammy died, we got 2 black ones. So Sammy was a Landseer, he was black and white. Jake and Zach were solid black, and then Oscar's a Landseer again, so he's black and white. Yep,
well, he sounds like he is a very loving, lovable dog, and I love dogs. So that's all. If somebody's like, "Oh, Anna, come visit," I'm like, "Nah, no, it's okay." "Oh, Anna, there's ghosts. It's haunted. Let's prove that ghosts are real." I'm like, man. It's like, there's a dog there. I'll be there. I'm coming.
And we discussed that minus the grilled onions, you actually could stomach a cheesesteak with a cheese that I would find acceptable.
Oh, I get Philly cheesesteaks sometimes. I just don't get the onions.
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, they're not real because they're out here, but I'm excited that I can introduce you to a proper Philly cheesesteak and you will accept it.
Whatever happened to your Philly cheesesteak show?
Coronavirus.
Oh, that actually explains it. Because I was like, how come Jessi hasn't done that in a while?
Yeah. We were on a bit of a hiatus in the fall just because life and stuff, but we were still working on it. We actually shot an episode. The last episode we shot together was August. Actually, when Jeff was out here last August, he's in it. We haven't released that one yet. And then coronavirus happened. So we were getting ready to get back together and get on track again, and that happened. But yeah, no, I've been talking because one of our guys is back in Philly right now, hopefully temporarily. But we've discussed the possibility of bringing Cheesesteaks back as a show where he gets to eat a real cheesesteak in Philly. I eat one out here, and I'm just sad, and he's just rubbing it in my face. It's not dead. Cheesesteaks is not dead. It's just on hiatus.
Oh my goodness. Let me read a couple of these super chats. And I apologize. I know a few of them came in and I haven't been able to read them yet. I had topics that we were going to talk about today, but I like talking about this shit more. So
right. This is so fun. We were just like off to the races on nothing to do with what we were supposed to talk about.
Well, I mean, honestly, the world is kind of shitty right now. There's people trying to, there is a bit of an echo. I don't know where it's coming from, though.
If it persists, I'll grab headphones. I know that helps.
Guys in the chat, is it coming from me or is it coming from Jessi? Start talking, Jessi.
Do you hear it when I talk or do you hear it when Anna talks? Lottie, blotty, blotty, blah.
La-da-day, la-da-do, la-da-dum.
Boobity, boobity, boobity. Blibbity, 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 blibbity.
Beep, bop, boop.
Oh, Gina Carano's pronouns.
Yeah, when I do a painting of her, which I'm really trying to find out this woman's favorite color. She hasn't responded to me. I think I know why.
That's drunk to ask her. He apparently.
I told him, I'm like, if you get a chance, can you just find out my favorite or her favorite color for me? I heard the echo right there. I don't know where it's coming from though. Maybe it's just
the echo's gone now, but it was coming from both. I think StreamYard is
just having a day. Angel Rin 89, thank you for the super chat. Oh, thanks, girl. I actually had invited Angel on. I don't think you have met Angel. I met her on a stream before, so she'd actually be a great guest.
Cool.
But I think you would really like Angel. I was on when I did on Anomaly Inc.'s channel, and we talked about the prequels. She was on for because it was a 10-hour stream, and she was on for half of it. I think you would really like Angel. So one of these days we'll get her on here. But she says, I would love to join you, lovely ladies, but unfortunately I'm stuck at work for another hour and a half. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Get work done. At least you still can work,
Yeah, that's very, very nice. But I'm looking forward to meeting you at some point. So that'll be
Let's
exciting.
see.
I love new friends.
Neon Wolf, thank you for the super chat. Good evening, ladies. Well, good evening.
Yeah. Hello.
Dana or Dan C, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to Drunk 3PO. Oh my god, really? I'm like the last person you need to send a super chat to get drunk to have a freaking shout out. Somebody
Seriously.
put that and send that to him. Shout out to Drunk 3PO, the sexiest man on YouTube. Hello, Drunk 3PO.
I don't know. Jeff's on YouTube, so
You're biased though.
Yeah.
It's for the meme. Baptist 702. Thank you for super chat. I understand everyone has their beliefs, but the only explanation I can find for an overwhelming feeling someone's in the room is a real spirit. I'll give you one better. Humans are very faulted, and humans make excuses for things that they can't explain, and that would be a spirit. And I 100% do not believe in them. Or I believe people have spirits, like, you know, and when somebody dies and their body is still alive, but their soul has left them. Because, you know, I've experienced that. That is definitely a thing, but I do not believe in ghosts in any shape or form. So I can come up with plenty of explanations for that in that regard, but thank you for the super chat. And that is all caught up on super chat. Where were we in the conversation, though? What were we talking about? The house, the dog, the goat.
We were on the big dogs and how that's your son. Oh, and cheesesteaks, and we got off onto cheesesteaks.
Oh,
I think
so
we had pretty much wrapped on our meander. So what's next?
Well, I mean, what were we? I don't even want to talk about the topic because we were talking about, because this was way more energy.
Right, this was way more fun. You just keep going until we find it. And Slick Rick says, "I believe in spirits if they come in a bottle and get me drunk." Fair enough.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, no argument for me.
I actually haven't drank in a while, I feel like.
Honestly, outside. Well, that's not true. I was gonna say outside of Thirsty Thursday, I'm gonna have to freaking figure shit out now because it's football season, which means Sunday is Guinness breakfast, and now I have Thirsty Thursday. I don't know if my body can handle 2 nights of drinking a week, but I mean, we had a fucking blast with Mary and Andrew. We got them obliviated last week, so that was anybody else, by the way, that you guys ever want to see on Thirsty Thursday. If you want me to bring on people on, they have to be able to hang. We can't just bring on nothing drinkers and expect them to keep up because they'll just die and it won't be fun. But if you think someone can keep up with us, send them our way for Thirsty Thursday and we'll get them fucked up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, see, the thing that throws me off now with drinking is I'm just like, it's not that it's, I never get like headaches the next morning. It's just like I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And so it's like with the hangover, I absolutely have to wake up and immediately take a shower and then eat a shit ton of bread. And that's like my hangover cure. But I'm like, I got shit to do now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like when I was, you know, a bit younger, like, oh yeah, drinking, no problem. But now, like, especially when I like started doing the Jack show and we were always getting drunk, I'm like, fuck, like this fucks up my whole damn weekend, because then the next day's Friday and then I'm sick and recovering, and then like my video isn't as good, or like my research isn't as good because I spent half the damn day trying to get better, and then, you know, it just fucks up my schedule, so I can't do it as much anymore. I have to limit myself. Let me read this while it's still here. Macy Van Dixon, thank you for the super chat. 3:40 p.m. Arizona time, just arrived. Howdy, y'all. Well, hello.
Macy? Same time here.
Yeah, it is.
For the next couple of months, and then we'll go back to being an hour apart because Arizona doesn't believe in daylight savings. But what was he saying about that? Oh yeah, no, I say lucky in quotations because I have my lesson at 11 o'clock on Fridays, which means I have to make sure that no matter how fucked up I get on Thursday night, that I stay up long enough and hydrate enough. That's one of the reasons why Thirsty Thursday tends to only be an hour and a half to 2 hours. First of all, because we get fucked up plenty in that amount of time. Second of all, that means my show ends still. It's only like 10:30, 11. So I still have a few hours to like stay awake, sober up, rehydrate, and make sure I'm not going to be hungover. Because that's me. If I don't spend that time, I don't, 1, sober up before I go to bed, and 2, like super overhydrate, like Pedialyte and shit like that, I will be fucked up the next day.
I have never drank Pedialyte, and I don't ever want to.
It's a necessary evil for me. It's the one thing I discovered. Like, honestly, I probably would have quit drinking about a year ago or a couple years ago, even if I hadn't discovered Pedialyte, because don't get regular hangovers. I get basically no matter how much I've been drinking, how often I've been drinking, and sometimes it'll happen after a night where I didn't even get drunk. My body reacts to alcohol differently, so my tolerance is incredible. It's through the roof. Even if I don't drink for a while, my tolerance stays pretty high. But the flip side of that is I frequently get alcohol withdrawal symptoms as part of my hangover, which suck because the thing about the alcohol withdrawal hangover is that the regular methods don't work to make you feel better. None of the regular things that worked for me, even a little bit when I was younger too, even then, like once I started getting hangovers, they were kind of like this and nothing works, which sucks because my body basically thinks I'm addicted to alcohol even when I don't drink it for weeks at a time. It's fun. Yep.
I feel like my body is just like, God damn it, Anna, why did you do this to us again?
Yeah, that
like,
too.
Why? You knew that this didn't work out the last time. And I'm like, I know. It's kind of like when, what is it? When I try to like drink water and it's like, we don't like that. Stop fucking drinking it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't like it either. I just had to. There was nothing else. And it's like, this makes us sick. Yeah, like the alcohol and water make me sick.
That's hilarious to me. I sympathize a little bit because I really don't like still. I've always had a problem with I've always had very sensitive taste buds to the point where like I have a problem with the way most water tastes, like most still water tastes. That's why I drink a lot of there's this thing called Splish right now. You can get it for like 89 cents a bottle, which is still more expensive than regular still water, but it's just like one of those hint of flavor ones. And another company makes something like this, where it's just a still water with like a hint of fruit flavor, like the way a seltzer water would be. I can drink those. I'm like, that's good because I'm getting back into singing now. I'm singing more and more, and my my friends keep telling me like, drink still water when you're singing. It's better for your voice. So I have to find ways. Like I can do it. Like also if it's filtered and super cold, I can do it. Like little things. I'm not as bad as you, but definitely just like regular water. Unless I'm super thirsty, I can't fucking do it.
Yeah, I don't like water. Still water sounds just as gross as regular water, and I can't sing to save my life.
There you go.
That is one thing that I always wished I could do, though, and it's the one thing I can't freaking do, and I'm like, it's so frustrating. But
yeah,
you got to deal with the cards you're dealt with, so it's like,
that said, I've been singing since I was a little kid. And you can ask my family members, when I was a little kid, up until I was about 16, I did not have a good voice. For some reason, I don't know if it was how my vocal cords matured or my body matured, something around that time in my life. And then also, then and onwards, I was in certain class. Like, I did a theater camp one summer where I had my first actual class about singing, like how to sing. And then I took some singing classes in college, little things like that to hone the technique. But even before that, it was just like 16. I don't know. Maybe that was my 10,000 hours. People say like 10,000 hours and you're an expert. Maybe that was my 10,000 hours of singing. And all of a sudden, it just like my voice matured. It blossomed into this thing that suddenly people wanted to listen to sometimes. Luca, the funny thing is, unlike the one time at band camp trope, when you start with one time at theater camp, there is no follow-up that is surprising. Like if you went with the American Pie, one time at theater camp, I shoved a flute up my pussy, you'd be like, oh, that sounds like a thing you do at theater camp. Like it's not even, it doesn't, actually that'd be kind of a fun reversal of the trope is one time at theater camp and like nothing the person says is surprising. One time at theater camp, we had an orgy. Yep. And one time at theater
I know, I'm not even surprised by because it's like band kids are weird and theater kids are weird, choir kids are weird, but they all have their own special quirks about them. Let me read this real fast. Neon Wolf, thank you for the super chat. Aliana referring to herself and her body as two separate entities like Venom. LOL. So I don't know if anyone else has this, but it's like when you eat, it's like I can feel the food go down my esophagus to my stomach, and it's like I can feel when my body is digesting it, and it's maybe it's because I'm so small, and so it's like I'm very, and also I have like I don't know, I'm very sensitive to pain. Like the slightest thing is like, ow, fuck, that hurts. So I have like no pain tolerance at all. But it's like I don't know, like when I don't feel good, I'm like, I can feel it. And like when how people say it's an expression like in the pit of your stomach, like, no, I can feel the damn pit of my stomach. And I know when it's not happy with me because I ate something or drank something it does not like. But maybe I can just say it's like,
I mean, that may be weird, but I also have had, like, maybe not to the extent that you do too, but like I have very, like, I am very aware of what's going on in my body digestion. Like I feel like you can feel where food is, you can feel like the digestion process too. Probably not to the same level of sensitivity that you do, but it makes sense to me.
This might be a little like TMI, at least for like the guys in this chat, but it's like when sorry guys, this happens to women, but like when I'm ovulating, I can feel it.
Oh yeah, I can too. That's a huge one for me. Like I always know because like I'm like, oh, it must be, because I can feel it, and I can also feel the specific way my body changes at that time. And be like, oh, it must be ovulating. Like, this is a little sensitive here. That's a little, you know, all that stuff and all that thing. Also,
it's like I can feel like the stuff like working, and I'm just like, it's sorry. No, it has nothing to do with your period. It's before you get your period, guys.
It's in between. It's at the in between period. It's time. So you ovulate. That's when your body releases the egg, and it's usually mid.
And like the egg goes down the tube to your uterus, and when it sees that it's not, you know, it's not getting fertilized, that's when your body then your body starts shedding the lining. That's when you get your period.
Happens. There you go. Biology with Anna and Jessi.
Yeah, biology. But so it's like I just remember like with the first time I went in to get birth control, and the lady told me, she's like, yeah, I only ovulate on like my left side. And I was like, oh, that's cool that she knows that. And then I realized, I'm like, oh my, and then like I never thought about it before, because it's like, you know, so like when you sneeze, and it's like everyone sneezes, but then when somebody explains to you, when you sneeze, like your heart stops, like literally everything in your body stops for 1 second when you sneeze. And you don't think about that until somebody tells you that, and it's like, oh shit, it's like the glass is broken, you're never going to be able to like unhear that fact. And so I never thought about it, and the lady told me that, and then ever since then I'm like, fuck. Like now I'm aware, and now I know what that feeling is. Let's see. Swinging Cod, thank you for super chat. Men can feel when we release our really
meats. Swinging Cod. This is a very Swinging Cod-esque.
It really is as well. Our feeling is a lot more pleasurable and sweaty. Well, lovely. I really want to know. Yes. No, this ovulating and like whatchamacallit, orgasming are two very different things. Ovulating actually is not the best feeling in the world. But
happy.
Looking at Henry Cavill feels fucking amazing. Let me just say that. Oh my god, I was on a stream yesterday, and one of the guys on it, he's like, I felt exactly the way you did when watching that Henry Cavill, and I was like, good, somebody that's not judging me for it.
Dude, that said though, I have read science though that like when you're extremely aroused, and when you're like with someone where like your pheromones sync up well and stuff like that, or when you have that a certain level of arousal, it can actually trigger ovulation. So it is possible that there are moments, you know, when you are so overwhelmed by Henry Cavill that it could trigger early ovulation. Because you are that primed to want to have his babies. So
well, then I guess I should never meet him then, because like, well, that's another thing. I don't know if I need to find this study so I can show you this, because it was a documentary that I was watching about people and the theory on if people actually do give off pheromones. Yeah. And it was, I think I've talked to you about it before, but it was where they had like 12 men and 12 women. Obviously back then when they did this study, which I mean, fuck, I don't think it was that long ago, but I think in reality, my concept of time has gotten lost, because I feel like 2000 in the millennium was like yesterday.
I still think of like, oh yeah, I still like I will like so mentally base, you know, how many years it's like, oh, the 60s was 40 years ago. Fuck, no, the 60s was like 60 years ago now.
I know, it's so like, fuck. Oh my God. Why was it that long ago? But so I watch it. So they have 12 men and they have 12 women. Obviously, it's like they didn't care about what any of them looked like. It's just like they had them wear like this white t-shirt and they said, go about your day, like go exercise in the sun, because they wanted them to sweat. And so what they did was they made sure that all the people, they went off, they were active, and then they put their t-shirts in a jar and like, you know, tried to like get the sweat out of it. And so what they had to do is they had each jar numbered. And so the women would go to one table and they had to smell each jar, and then they had a little piece of paper and they wrote down like in order of which one smelled the best to which one smelled the worst. And the men did the same thing to the jars, like with all the t-shirts that had the women's sweat in it. And so what they actually found out, because then, you know, they were, obviously these people are part of an experiment, so they all agreed to this, but so they looked at their genes, and the people who when they smelled the sweat, the ones that smelled the best to them were the ones that had the most different genes to them. And the more genes you had in common to the person, the worse they smelled to you, because you know, the thing that people want, or the way that your body works, is that they want the most genetic variety for their offspring. So that way the offspring has the best chances.
Exactly.
That's so
really
I was
cool.
like, that was a really interesting study. So I'm like, but if the whole thing you're saying, you know, sparks ovulation, if I saw Henry Cavill, I'm like, what if we have a lot of genes in common and he smells terrible to me?
Natural chemistry. Here's another interesting thing that I had read about. It's a theory. I don't think there's any way to scientifically test it and whatnot, but some of these studies, and this is actually one of the reasons why one of the many reasons why I elected to go for a non-hormonal birth control, is because one of the side effects that scientists believe happens when women are on birth control is that it masks your natural pheromones. That it does change, because birth control does change your hormonal makeup, which has an impact on your pheromones and how they read to other people. Because part of the way the hormones work with birth control is it basically tricks your body into thinking it's always pregnant, so it stops ovulating. And when your body's not ovulating, when it thinks it's pregnant, it's not releasing pheromones because it's not trying to attract a mate anymore. It thinks it's done that already. Okay, we're pregnant, hooray! So what was interesting, what they then connected the dots on, and where this theory comes from, is if you look at the drastic rise in the divorce rate, it coincides with the spread of birth control in our society. And so the theory is that people were not using that sort of more intuitive pheromone-based attraction to choose their mates. They were doing because they were on birth control, so that didn't exist for them. They met somebody, they had things in common on the superficial level, you know, or not even superficial level, even maybe on a deeper level, got married, got off birth control to have kids. All of a sudden, when they're off birth control, especially under the additional stressors of, you know, rearing children, all of a sudden their base pheromones weren't compatible and the attraction wasn't there anymore. That's the theory. So the theory is that the prevalence in birth control has been a contributing factor to the divorce rate, because it removes one of the natural attraction-based criteria for selecting mates.
That's really interesting,
isn't it? So I was like, you know, because there's also a lot of stuff too where it's like, I have a lot of questions. Like, so if you're not ovulating, what's happening to those eggs? As we know, you know, like when a woman runs out of eggs, she goes through menopause. So is it the kind of thing where, like, because I've heard that maybe when you go off birth control, your body is more likely to release multiple eggs. Because I've heard also some things like correlations between certain types of birth control and then having twins later in life, or like fraternal twins specifically, which would corroborate that theory and whatnot. But it's like I had a lot of questions about, like, what happens to all those eggs? What happens to my body after I've tricked it into this being in this unnatural state for so long? And I was on the pill. Now, fortunately for me, unlike a lot of my peers, I started taking birth control for pregnancy prevention. A lot of my peers started taking it for acne or certain other like developmental reasons and stuff like that. And typically for those reasons, they give you a stronger dose. Hey, we just need to stop ovulation, we don't need to correct any, you know, puberty things, is the lowest available dose. So fortunately I was on with a lower dose, but I'm like, I've been on this shit for 16 years. What is my body even like without it?
Oh my God, that is crazy to think about. Ironically, I
So, 2 years ago, I switched to an IUD. Sorry for the super graphic lady talk. I switched to an IUD, and I've been much. The periods are brutal, but I've been much happier.
Oh, I know exactly which one you got.
Yep.
Yeah, see, when that was the option, I was like, which one makes it so I don't have babies and I don't have a period? And I'm like, I want that one.
I just really wanted to go with 0 hormones. And I
Yeah,
know.
that's what my friend did. I know. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Macy Van Dixon, thank you for super chat. Optic Racer wants to know what happened to the ghost talk. For that matter, so do I. Okay, we can talk about ghosts again.
We can talk about ghosts, but people want to hear more of my
If you guys want to hear us talk about our birth control and our periods, we are happy to do so. But I would just like to say we started by talking about hormones and attracting Henry Cavill. But Mark C, thank you for super chat. I think it's been taken down, but did you see the video of the P3, the pedo getting the snot beat out of him and his arms broken by the father of an underage daughter? It was both horrible and great. No, but good.
That sounds
I'm
brutal.
actually surprised the father didn't do worse, because I know if something like that happened to me and my parents found out, that guy would be dead.
Right? I'm not sure I want to watch this video, but kudos to the guy who did it, 100%. Because fuck that shit. Now, if I was in that situation, I'm the same. I'd probably fucking kill the person. I don't think I'd be able to hold back if someone did that. Fuck.
Did you ever watch A Time to Kill?
No.
Oh, you need to watch it. It's the greatest.
Yeah, I feel like you mentioned. I really want to watch it.
Okay, here's a great okay, so we can get into the morality. Okay, so if somebody hurts your child, if somebody, let's say you have a child and they get molested or they get raped, do you think it should, if as a parent, let's say if you're in a court of law, do you think it should be, if you kill the person or if you cause bodily harm to the person?
I think it should be considered temporary insanity. Maybe you have mandated therapy, and community service and whatever, etc., that kind of thing. But I think that should be considered temporary insanity and should be considered a heavily mitigating circumstance to whatever sentencing comes as a result.
Okay, so you and I are exactly on the same page with that. So, so this movie, it's got everyone. So it's, Samuel L. Jackson, Matthew McConaughey, Sandra Bullock, Kevin Spacey, Kiefer Sutherland, and Donald Sutherland. And so what happens, it's not a spoiler, it's the first opening scene of the movie, is Samuel L. Jackson has 9 kids and 1 little girl, and the little girl gets hardcore raped.
Oh, you or someone else has explained the premise of this.
I think it was me. So,
yeah, I'm super interested in this movie.
It's in the South, so there is the Ku Klux Klan in it, and it is about rape. So this is this is for SJWs that cry about this shit. I'm like, this movies about this topic have been done before, and this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Yeah, and it's been done well. So Matthew McConaughey is the lawyer. She's a law student that comes in a little bit later. But Samuel L. Jackson finds out that his little girl got raped by 2 full-grown men. And then, he does the thing. And so he's on trial for the thing that he did to the guys that raped his little girl. Yeah. And so Matthew McConaughey is his lawyer. But also because not only do you have the aspect of he did the thing to the guys that raped his little girl, but they're in the South and it's a hardcore racist jury. And so it's not because they're trying to plead temporary insanity when he did it. So it's they need to get a jury that's not going to be racist, but the area that they're in is very racist. Yeah. And so it's such a good movie because then you have the guys that did it are, they're white supremacists. And so that's when the KKK gets involved. And then so Donald Sutherland, Kiefer Sutherland, excuse me. So Donald Sutherland is Matthew McConaughey's mentor. And then Kiefer Sutherland is the KKK guy.
So weird. I mean,
I know it's so good because he's the villain of it. And then this is one of the things. It's there's there's more villains in this movie than there are good guys, because you got the KKK people, you have Kevin Spacey, who's going to be the lawyer that goes up against Matthew McConaughey. And let me get some images on here, but
This sounds incredible.
it's such a good movie. You know, maybe we should do like what EFAP does, where they watch a movie together and there's like no photos from the damn movie. But it's an all-star cast. It's absolutely fantastic. But so I'd love
to see it.
The scene with Matthew McConaughey at the end is, I think it's still his best performance.
Oh, wow.
But it's so good. Yeah, so Kevin Spacey is the lawyer that's going up against Matthew McConaughey, and I think he's going to like run for being a senator. So he thinks he's like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to win this case, and they're trying to get it to be in another county so it's not racist, because they know that the jury will be all white, and if it's all white, they'll go against him. And then because he's a black man that killed 2 white boys,
it's a great premise. I mean, it's a great story now, because it smacks so much of truth. And that's what I think. That's why I like, of the, race movies that come out recently, I actually do want to go check out Just Mercy at some point, because it's that same kind of vein of like, I think Just Mercy supposed to be based on a true story too, I think. And like, to me, those are the important stories to tell, and the way to tell these like racial justice stories that work, because you're able to use the lens of history. And
why are people saying no? It's called A Time to Kill. It says it right here on the movie.
Someone has saying it's a different movie.
No, they're saying it's A View to Kill, and I'm like, no, it's A Time to Kill.
That's a James Bond movie. A View to a Kill is a James Bond movie.
I know that. That's what I'm like.
Let the audience know that's not the movie she's talking about.
I'm talking about the movie that I have right here on the screen. Like,
yeah, the one where it says A Time to Kill. Very, very different film. But that sounds really good. And actually, it's so stupid that it's, Tom tells me about like the joke they always have a Midnight's Edge After Dark is Midnight's Edge in general is like any movie that existed previously that was, progressive enough that it doesn't fit the SJW narrative of, oh, this is the first time, this is never done in history. Oh, that just didn't exist before then. That's all this shit though. It's like, oh, this movie clearly didn't exist. This movie's not real. It never happened. What do you mean we had good and nuanced films about racial justice before the year 2010? No, that never happened.
No, and it's like, oh yeah, we never had a movie about like gay people being treated unjustly and being judged. It's like, oh, Philadelphia didn't exist with Antonio Banderas and Tom Hanks.
It was funny because as you were talking about this movie, it reminded me of that one, and like it's a very like the same sort of setup and I think it's a good premise for handling these sensitive issues about minority groups of like, let's have the character who's not a part of this minority world, who is now privy to it and learns to be sympathetic to it. And it's like, that's that trope worked for some of these really great Oscar baiting movies for a long time because it's accessible. That's another thing too, to get into a little Star Trek topics. There's now this whole like push to make Captain Kirk bisexual or whatever.
Which is complete fucking bullshit. Captain Kirk, he sees a woman and he's like, hello.
Exactly. And it's this weird obsession with like, oh, we have to have these pansexual everyone's. It's like Captain Kirk is as straight as they fucking come. Fucking Aliens is not pansexual, though I get how you could be confused because you think having Lando fuck a robot in Solo makes him pansexual. But I'm like, you act like, oh, it was so great to have the bisexual captain. I'm like, do we all forget about fucking Captain Jack Harkness from Doctor Who? I mean, he is that. He is your swashbuckling space captain pansexual character that everyone was on board with, that people accepted. John Barrowman would, when he went to conventions and stuff like that, would parade his husband out on stage with him and stuff like that. He was super proud, and he played a fucking great pansexual character on a show, and no one had an issue with that. Because he worked, he made sense, and it was never about him being pansexual or all this stuff. It was just always a fun, and I don't say they treated it like a joke, but it was always like a fun part of the show that Jack Harkness would fuck anything, and it fucking worked. It was exactly that natural evolution of, okay, in the 60s we could have a Captain Kirk character whose willingness to fuck any alien race was a great allegory for interracial, dating and whatnot. And great. So then in the early 2000s, we had a great character who was the evolution of that. Okay, who's someone who's gonna fuck anything? Well, they'll fuck anything, and it's not just about the alien anymore. They'll fuck men and women and races that don't have sex and whatnot. Okay, cool. It was a great, very natural evolution of it. Never called attention to it. Never got like obsessed with, the messaging into progressive is about, just fucking did it. And then Torchwood happened. There was an entire fucking sci-fi show helmed by a pansexual character played by a gay man. But does that fucking matter? No, that doesn't exist. That's not real. No, we've never had a gay character lead a show before. We've never had a hyper-masculine gay character. Fuck you. Fuck you. And what you're saying about John Barrowman's legacy as if it meant nothing. I'm sure he took shit for being out at the time. I'm sure that it was an issue at points and it was a difficult thing at certain points and whatnot. And instead of giving him the fucking accolades he deserved for being out and proud and playing an out and proud character at a time when it was only just becoming more widespread and acceptable, no, fucking remove all his accolades. Let's not fucking talk about that. Let's just pretend it never fucking happened and then try to ram it down your throat with shitty characters and shitty actors.
It's just frustrating. But I mean, no, like when they say, oh, like a black man like has never been a lead in a movie, or like, oh, there's no black men in Hollywood. I'm like, Samuel L. Jackson, Denzel Washington, like, come on, what are you talking about? Morpheus was like
genre of 1970s movies that exclusively had black leads. The fuck do you think blaxploitation was? Yeah, okay, blaxploitation. Not every part of the messaging in this shit was good all the time, but a lot of blaxploitation was black people reclaiming the power over their image. And all those fucking movies had black fucking leads.
It's just, I mean, the people that complain about this stuff, I'm like, you haven't watched a lot of movies, have you? And then when you sit down and talk to them, I'm like, well, have you seen this movie? No. Have you seen this show? No. Have you even heard of this? No. Because it's one thing to like be aware of a movie and know that it exists, and like there's certain movies where it's like, oh, I might have not necessarily seen that, but I know that it exists, and I know that it for an SJW it checks out those boxes. I just haven't seen it, but they don't even know that these things exist. And it blows my mind. I mean, okay, 3 movies that I feel like all these SJWs need to watch and shut the fuck up about it. Okay, they want to complain about racism and injustice. Okay, go watch A Time to Kill. You want to complain about the injustice done against gay people, or the, what would it called? Bigotry against gay people?
Homophobia,
excuse me. Homophobia, not only against gay people, but if somebody is sick and like looking down upon somebody that's sick and specifically has a certain disease. Okay, go watch Philadelphia. You want to complain about government conspiracy theory and the way that there's not a strong empowered woman and a black man. Okay, go watch The Pelican Brief. 3 movies, all that SJWs need to watch, and they need to shut the fuck up about, oh, well, we haven't had this before. Time to Kill, Philadelphia, Pelican Brief. Go watch them.
Just because y'all don't fucking believe in history or are aware that things existed before you were fucking alive doesn't mean that they don't exist. Yep. That's the problem. It's that meme. It's the fucking in the age of information, when you can literally find out anything with the click of a button, the entitlement of acting like the only things that exist are things that you already fucking know about. It's like, how much more stupid and anti-intellectual can you get?
They basically are the definition of stupid and anti-intellectual.
Exactly. That's why.
And then when you present them facts, they're like, that doesn't count, or they block you.
Yep.
And just don't acknowledge it ever. And it's like, I'm literally fact checking you. And it's one thing. So it's like, if I say something, like even just now, I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? And you told it to me. I'm like, I'm not going to say fuck you,
That's like the right word. Stop. I don't know. Tall person explaining to me. You always do this because I'm shorter than you, Jessi. You just fucking over-explain things to me.
It's because you can reach the books in the library that have the words. You could reach the dictionary. I couldn't.
It's so offensive. I know, it's very offensive to you. Anytime, even when you're not there, anytime I lift something off of a shelf that you can't reach, I'm personally attacking you.
Well, to be fair, I do have freakishly long arms, so even though I'm short, I can reach a lot of stuff. Like, okay, so Peaches' mom, I think it was like a holiday, but we were getting something ready in the kitchen, and she's like, oh, I can't get this down. And I was like, I'll get it. And she's like, no, you're going to need a stool. And I'm like, no,
bitch,
I can get it. And then I didn't even get on my tiptoes, and I could just reach it. She's like, she looked at me like, how the heck did you reach that? You're so short. And I'm like, I have freakishly long arms. And then she's like, oh my God, you do.
I used to keep an old cat litter container in the house because it was my stepping stool to get to my highest shelves, and now I just date Jeff. So
Yeah, it's like, Jeff, just grab that.
seriously, all the time. I'm like, Jeff.
Wait,
there's
Jeff,
all the
can
times too,
Jeff
like,
just
we'll
like,
put something
without
away.
getting on tippy toes, can he touch your ceiling?
Yeah, he can just steal it in here. Yeah, for sure. And but yeah, there's sometimes I'll put things away and I'll put it on a shelf I can't reach, and I'm like, Jeff, remember when you put that thing away? Can you get it for me?
It's too high. It's too high. See, I'm like at that point where like our cabinets go all the way up to the roof now, and I'm like, I'm fucking short. Like I just have to have a stool in my freaking kitchen, which has never changed because I've always had to have a stool in my kitchen. My dad was actually talking about this. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, when you were little, he's like, then your mom got you that stool, and he's like, then you were crawling all over everything. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you had that stool. He's like, you always carried it around wherever you went. And I'm like, life of a short person, even when I was little.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, even it was the most bizarre thing when I went back to my like childhood home and I went into like the bathroom, and I had no memory of ever being able to see in the mirror. I always had to stand on a stool because the mirror was up high. And then it was the most bizarre thing because, after my parents split and I went back to like the childhood home and I walked in the bathroom, like, oh my God, I can see my face and I'm not standing on a stool. It was the weirdest thing ever. I was like, I've never not had like, and this was when I was in college. So even in high school, I couldn't see in this mirror.
Aww.
I know, it was the most bizarre thing ever. But the life of a short person, it's hard sometimes, guys. You don't understand. You don't understand because you guys are all probably tall.
I've heard the woes many a time. I've had many short friends. So it was funny. I had a group of friends, my core group of friends when I was in high school were all a lot, like it was me and two other girls would hang out all the time, and both of them were really, really short. And I always felt like, because I would look at our newfies and stuff, and like they looked regular to me, but you see them walking down the street, you see them next to like a golden retriever, and by comparison, the golden retriever looked like so much smaller and sleeker and like thinner and whatnot. And like, the dogs always look normal to me, but you saw them in that context and they just like these big fluffy bears. I always felt like that with my short friends. I'm like, I feel like this big lumbering bear, and they're these like high tall people.
Well, it's like in the Phantom Menace, I feel like aren't like all of us short except for you?
Of the women?
Yeah.
I don't know how short Mary was until the other day when I talked to her. Kelly Jedi Bunny's pretty short.
Is she taller than me, or are we the same height?
Actually, I don't know. Kelly Jedi Bunny Kelly, how tall are I know if she's been in the chat?
She left. I had it up here. She had to leave a little bit ago, but I said bye.
Because I know I'm taller than her, but I don't know if she's like short. I have to see her again. It's been a minute. I think she's pretty small though. Trying to think of who else.
I think like Tugs is short, Steph is short, everyone is short, and I'm just and you're just like a giant.
I'm just regulars. I'm like 2 inches above average. John Branson really wants me to say his name, so cheers, John Branson. I've seen him. He's replied before, I think, in my tweet threads of, hey, going live, and if you're not going to catch a live, I'll shout you out in the replay. So, John Branson, here are you live. There you go.
And then I think I saw a super chat come in, and hello, Damajanai. Hello, beautiful ladies. Hope you're well. Hello. I am doing well.
Good to talk to you. Hope you're doing well as well.
I still will never forget. Damajanai brought me chocolate.
I remember that.
At our celebration, he's like, I know you love chocolate, and I figured you would be hungry. And I was like, you just read my freaking soul.
That was so sweet of him. We had a lot of fun. I really liked, because when last time he was on, he shared some of his music off of his SoundCloud and stuff. I really liked the music that he does. So check out Damajanai's SoundCloud. It's cool. He does really cool music.
There you go.
Dags says, how tall are you both? I'm 5'7".
Yeah, she's tall. I'm short. I would tell you guys how tall I am, but I actually don't know, because every time I think I'm like a certain height, and then I find out that I'm actually not that height, and it's just depressing because I'm like, I thought you're not supposed to shrink until you get to a certain age, and I'm shrinking.
I would assume you're like what, between 5 feet and 5'2"?
Maybe, I don't know.
That would be my assumption.
But every time I'm around you, I have shoes that give me a little height.
That's fair. So Mary's only like 5'2", and I was surprised. I didn't realize she was that short. What does your driver's license say you are?
Oh, my driver's license gives me a lot of height because I wear heels every time I go to the DMV.
So it says you're like 5'4" or some shit like that. And you're like,
I think, let me check what it says on here now. Because when I was in high school, I 100% lied and I said I was 5'3" when I was like 4'8". So it's like, that was the biggest lie because I didn't break 4'9" until I was at least a senior.
I was 5 feet when I was in 5th grade when I was 10.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I grew really fast. I slowed down. Like I was probably 5'6" by the time I was 14. And then I hit 5'7" by 16-ish. And
see, I legally still had to ride in a car seat when I was in high school.
That's hilarious.
Because I was so fucking small. Yeah. It was the most embarrassing thing. Well, in California, they have it with you're either 12 or 60 pounds or like a certain height. I got to 12 and I was like, I finally broke one of those things. There's no way I'm breaking the other ones. And so, yeah, I think when I was a senior in high school, I broke 4'9".
Oh, fun.
But so but then when I got to college, I got a little bit taller because then all my friends, they're like, oh, we're this height. And I'm like, wow, I'm the same height as all of you. So I got taller, right? And so I stopped wearing, because I always wore heels or like wedges so that I wasn't walking around high school in stilettos, but I would wear shoes that would give me some lift. So that way people weren't like, wow, this girl's a midget. And then one of my friend's moms, she saw a picture of me and she's like, oh my God, Anna's not wearing heels. Because everyone knew that I wore heels because I was so freaking short. And I would just wear like longer pants to hide it.
Absolutely.
But on my license, it says that I'm 5'5", which is a 100%.
What? So, what were you? Were you wearing like the fucking platform sneakers from like the fucking 90s and shit? The ones that are like add like 3 feet to your height. Jesus.
No, I was literally wearing stilettos.
Clearly, because that's a fucking. You were putting 4 to 6 inches on you.
I 100% lied, but the trick is you wear wedges and you wear the cork wedges so that way they don't make noise when you walk, and then you wear boot cut jeans that cover it, and so they cannot tell when you go to the DMV.
I see. So they don't make you take it off, or
they don't. And then the only thing that I did have to kind of give myself my actual height on my passport, because I'm like, you have to take your shoes off at the airport. So I was like, fuck. So this one, that's the only thing I was thinking about now that I actually like have a passport and I want to travel. Well, I've always wanted to travel, but now I actually have a passport. I'm like, fuck, my height on my license doesn't match my height on my passport. So I'm like, fuck, I screwed myself over hardcore on there. So if there's anyone that's like a real big stickler on it, I'm like, I might get fucked over on that, but it is.
That's the nice thing about a passport, though, is if you have a passport, typically that's enough, So there are very few instances where someone who has seen your passport is going to need to cross-reference it with your driver's license. So basically, just anytime you're in a situation where you might have to present your passport, just make that the first thing you present. That way, because it's like, there could be an instance where you have a driver's license, but someone needs to see your passport. There shouldn't be an instance where someone sees your passport and then needs to see your driver's license. So just err on the side of always showing your driver's license first in those situations, and then you don't have to worry about it.
That's true. But I mean, it's like I can always like just put heels on, but I can't. When I'm not that tall, and they're like, if I lie and say I'm that tall and then I don't have these shoes on, I definitely screw myself over in that aspect. But I 100% lied on my driver's license. That shit is not true. I am not 5'5". But that's the one thing, though. I always make sure I'm like, if there's one place that I have to make sure my hair is done, my makeup is done, I have my heels on, it's the fucking DMV. So I went to the DMV, and it was funny because I live streamed that I'm like there because I went there at like the crap before the sun was up. I was sitting in my car in pitch black, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait for the DMV to open because I have to go get my California Real ID.
Yep.
And so I did everything online before, and then I went in and I was like the second person helped, even though I was the first person in line. But I'm like, glamour makeup on, hair done, outfit on point, and everyone else looks like they hate their life because they're B. And I'm just like, I feel so out of place. But my picture turned out fantastic, so I'm happy.
It's worth it for that, right? I have actually, with one exception, I think my junior license, my picture made me look vaguely like I eat children for breakfast.
Oh, no.
It just looked kind of evil. But since then, I've only ever had like pretty solid driver's license photos. I've never really been upset with how one of mine has turned out.
My first one was terrible.
But I'm also not as critical of my image as you are of yours. You definitely hold yourself to a much higher standard in images and stuff. I'm like, I look the way I look. If it looks shitty, whatever.
I think it's just because if I don't, then I just don't hear the end of it. And also, I feel kind of icky if I don't.
That makes sense. Do that. I mean, you feel a certain way when you get dressed up and when you do that. It's something you're going to carry with you for a long time and have to look at and have to show people. It's like, why not have it look the way you want to represent yourself? This speaks to us both. You always look great. You always look very put together. All that shit's on point. And I frequently look like a hobo.
You don't.
But I mean,
I think that goes in so we're all overly critical of ourselves. Like, you think that you look like a hobo, but I'm like, no, you look fine.
See, there it is. You can never. I was talking to Jeff about some of that. I am definitely, I might give myself a pass more on some of like on certain things. The standards I hold myself to with a lot of things in my life are completely unreasonable. And I recognize that on an intellectual level. I know these standards are ridiculous and unreasonable. That doesn't stop me from doing it. Doesn't stop me from going, but I should be able to meet these absurd standards that no human being possibly could. Standards where if I heard my friend trying to meet them, I would tell them they were insane and should stop because what they're doing is unhealthy. But for me, no, it's fine. The rules.
In what aspect? And like,
a lot of my like work and stuff like that, body image, like I definitely have a lot of body image issues, like everybody does to an extent. It's taken the past few years for me to sort of realize how warped my body perception is. And then like work, I was telling Jeff, like we had a phase earlier in the year, I was having a lot more trouble with anxiety, and then the coronavirus was contributing to the anxiety and stuff. And I wasn't really productive. I didn't really do a lot, and I was pretty depressed at points. So I wasn't, and then I had all the family issues. I think a lot of people remember some of that. And I was very critical of myself, even though I knew I was going through shit, saying like, well, you should be better. You should have more of your shit done. You should do all this. And now, past few weeks, past month or so, I'm getting really on track with that stuff. I've been much more productive. I've been putting out videos. I have this whole channel for the cat and whatnot. I still think of myself as just as lazy and unproductive as when I was literally doing nothing. As opposed to now, when every waking moment is pretty much filled with doing something, I can't give myself any credit for that. I'm just like, no, you're still not doing enough. You're still lazy, and you're closer to doing nothing. I think of myself as I am closer to doing nothing than I am to doing the things I need to be doing.
Well, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes, because maybe you and I are a lot the same in certain aspects. Like I hold very high standards for things, and it's like, even like when I'm like showing you like some of my drawings or some of my stuff, and you're like, I think that looks fine. I'm like, no, it looks like absolute shit. Like I need to spend like 100 more hours on it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you and I are just too on sync for me to like, disagree or like be
right. You're like, I can't disagree with you because I do the same thing to myself, and fine. No, yeah, I think we're both perfectionists in that regard, and we both have there are good things about it. We don't compromise with the quality of our work. We don't compromise with things like that. But then, of course, the negative side is I think both of us don't give ourselves enough credit for the things we do. I think that's definitely something you and I have in common. The positive.
It is. And I'm like, I can't even argue your point because I'm like, yeah.
Well, that's why we have each other, because you and I will give each other credit when we don't give it to ourselves. And I think knowing that, too, is one of the reasons why it's like, it's so easy to talk to you about stuff, and I really put a lot of stock into your advices because I know you get that. you get that part of me too. And so you're not going to say things just to placate me when I'm being overly self-critical. You're going to give me sort of the honest truth and like actionable feedback and a realistic perspective of like, okay, I see where you think you can improve and there's some validity to that, versus like, Jessi, you're just being irrational. That thing is fine. You need to chill.
And then I do the same exact thing to you.
Exactly.
Where I'm like, and you're just like, Anna, calm the fuck down. And I'm like, no,
And the funny part
I see the world. And you're like, no, here's a simple solution. It's like, okay.
The funny part is, no matter how many times we do it to each other, it takes just as much work to talk. And as much as we can recognize this now, it takes just as much work to talk the other one off the ledge, both ways and every single time. It's like the same amount. Do we learn things from this experience? No. Actually, we do.
We're gonna do it We're gonna do it in like another in like a few weeks. We're gonna be right back at the same.
What we learn from this experience is that we can always rely on each other to have our back. That's what we learned from this experience.
No, but I mean, Jeff was right, because I remember, it's one of those things where it's like you don't realize it, like you're aware of it, and it's like part of your, everyday thinking or everyday life, or I wouldn't say necessarily taking it for granted, but it's like that thing that you can always depend on. But then once somebody tells you it, then it's like, oh my God, the glass is broken. Like I can never unsee this again. And I remember because you're my best friend. I always come to you for stuff when I'm like, even if I just want to vent because this one thing is stupid and it has absolutely no effect on my life, but maybe, I'm just like, I just want to talk to somebody about this. I just remember when Jeff said, he's like, oh yeah, if you ever are feeling like down, like just talk to Jessi. She gives great advice. And I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, Jessi does give great advice. Whenever I talk to her, she does like have a way of, rationalizing it or explaining it in a certain way to make me feel better. Especially it's like if I'm really sad or if I'm really pissed off, or it's like getting under my skin. And then it's like, even though you're telling me stuff, maybe I already know, maybe I don't know, maybe I do know, but like the way that you rationalize it and the way that you put it out, I'm like, yeah, I'm not it's like what would the like Buddha, I've met my peace kind of thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes me feel good. Yeah, I'm glad that's been helpful. That's one of the things like I think about a lot when I like do that. And so it makes me feel really good that the people in my life have benefited from that. Because as a coach, that was one of the things I've always looked at that with coaching. I'm like, if my student isn't getting what I'm trying to teach him or her, I should, rather than getting frustrated or trying to explain it again, I should try to find another way in. And I'm glad that that's been successful. One thing I'd say, like in the other way that you are the best for is you always, you end up being my Vulcan brain a lot of the time. Like, when I'm really emotionally invested in something, you're the one who always helps me pare it down and either see it objectively, see both sides of it, or see the long-term play or ramifications of something. So you give me that, like, when I'm really focused up and like this and whatever, you give me that extra perspective, which either adds nuance or focuses what I'm trying to do, or just makes me, helps me be more aware of it and like how to use it,
We're like the Kirk and Spock. This is why I said we need to get the gender bin costumes, and we need to like, I'm sure one of us knows a photographer, and we can go take like cosplay pictures where I'm Spock and you're Kirk.
We would be such a great Spock Kirk duo. We really would be.
And we wouldn't even necessarily have to be Spock and Kirk. Like you can just be the captain and I'll be the Vulcan.
Well, yeah, that's
on our little sci-fi. That can be our movie. We can be in my dad's orchard and it'd be an alien planet, and I'm the Vulcan, and you're, even though I cannot act. That could be the funny thing. I cannot give any emotion, so I just stand there and I deliver the lines, which
we just call it the Captain and the Vulcan.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the Captain and the Martian or something, because I couldn't be the Vulcan.
That'd be really interesting. But yeah, if we did something like the Captain and the Martian, I love it, and like just make you that Vulcan style character. That would be honestly, if you were going to go in front of the camera, that's a great character choice for you, because you don't have to worry about all the.
I don't have to worry about acting. I just deliver lines and like stare at you.
Exactly. You just be very presentational about it. I think you're, like you said, you love public speaking, so like basically all you have to do is treat it like you're giving a speech.
Should that be our movie, guys? Just me and Jessi walking through a field talking about something?
That would be fucking great.
Okay, actually, did you ever have to do this? I remember when I was a kid, my teachers always loved when I told stories, or when we did creative writing. That was always my favorite thing, was to come up with new stories. And did you ever have it where they give you a piece of paper and stapled to it as a picture, and you have to write a story based on that picture?
Yes.
Okay, so I remember I was so pissed off because I got one where it was like a mouse that was a ballerina from some stupid like ballerina mouse book, and I was like, fuck that. So I wrote one sentence, and I was like, this little girl that's a ballerina, or that's a mouse, like to become a ballerina. She danced on stage, and my teacher was like, I was expecting this great story, and I was like, I hate this thing. Like, this is the one thing I'm like, no, I'm not motivated to write anything at all. But then there was one where I wrote like a 6-page story because it was a little cutout of a magazine picture of an advertisement of a couch, and a cat is sitting on the couch, and I came up with this whole in-depth story about why, like the backstory on this like couch and like the world that it's in, and the cat sitting on it.
That's hilarious. I remember one, it was some like writing competition too, where like your teacher, we didn't even know they were doing it. It was like as teachers submitted, you know, who they thought were their best writers, and it was like a interscholastic writing competition, and it was the prompt we got the first line and the last line. I love stuff like that. That's one of like, when I have a prompt like that, I can fucking just, I can go. Like if I get a little something, a little nudge, I can freaking go. And I like that. I do prefer just like a single sentence prompt or something over a picture sometimes, depending on the picture. Like you said, sometimes you get a really, with the pictures, I actually like the really basic ones like that, like just a couch or something like that, where the possibilities are endless. But that's something that for me, like those single images have always been very inspiring to me too. I've crafted many entire stories over like around a single piece of imagery. My senior work was developed around a piece of imagery that came about during an acting exercise in a directing class in my junior year of college. And fast forward to my spring of my senior year, winter of my senior year, that one image became the entire basis for the whole screenplay that I wrote. It was just kind of a neat thing. But yeah, I love that.
What kind of stories do you gravitate towards when you're the one that's coming up with them?
Honestly, it really does depend. My baseline and my starting point, my origins as a writer, are all fantasy. Are all pretty like fairly like young adult. When I was younger, it was all very young adult. You know, obviously you just kind of write, you know, what you know. But now I'd say there's more adult themes, but it's like fantasy, like very readable fantasy, I would say, is kind of my go-to. So not like dense or heady or like super Lord of the Ringsy, but like very palatable fantasy. And then I've actually moved into a lot of urban fantasy. So it's like set in a more real, recognizable, like modern setting, but with fantasy elements in it. You know, I have like, and then like action. It's not explaining myself right. So, you know, action becomes a big part of it. But then like the screenplay I'm working on, and I like short story. I love horror. I love and I love working on like short stories and short films. Genre doesn't matter for me if I'm writing short. To me, short is so much about the message and how you can punch it home in your, you know, 15 to 20 minute window, 5 to 10 pages, whatever it is you're doing. So that's less about like style and more about story, where I really like something that makes you think, something that's dark, something with a dark twist, that kind of thing for short. But then my screenplay is nothing like I've ever written before. The one I'm working on right now, I'm very serious about. Have I pitched this to you yet? My screenplay?
No, you haven't. You told me about it, but you haven't pitched it to me.
So my pitch line is fleeing persecution in 1930s Bavaria, only to find more on the streets of New York. A young Jewish man reclaims his power by becoming a hitman for the mob.
Hey, I've been to Bavaria.
Yeah, I have too. It is a beautiful place, but it is also the birthplace of Nazism. So it starts out during, you know, the early rise of the Nazi regime, the spread of Nazism in Bavaria, and then of course the rest of Germany. So we open on a 13-year-old boy who notices some older teenagers who are Nazi sympathizers, like the early Hitler Youth and whatnot, bullying another boy from his class, another Jewish boy from his class, and he follows them unseen to a park where they're then beating up this kid and force him onto his knees, where the ringleader pulls out a switchblade to kill him, execute him basically.
Mm-hmm.
This main kid Joe, gets involved. Joseph ends up, saving this kid David's life. Ends up killing.
Of course, his name is David.
Yeah, it's a good Jewish name. Saves David. So Joseph saves David's life. Yosef, because it's German. Saves David's life in the process. Gets pretty scraped up, but also ends up taking the knife and killing, kind of accidentally, but sort of in the heat of the moment, killing this ringleader kid. Nobody knows this aside from David. The parents, he never tells his parents or anyone else that this happens, but his parents see he's gotten into this fight. They're concerned about, the climate of Germany, so they send him off to live with his father's cousin in America. He gets to America. He's grown up with this very warm family life, with Judaism as not a centerpiece, but an important part of it. His uncle's very austere. He has really no sympathy for Joe. Joe, meanwhile, is a quiet kid, but a very quick study. So he picked up a lot of English on the boat over already. He's picked up stuff from going to bars and things like that.
You probably don't want to give the entire thing away.
That's fair. I mean, I don't think anyone else.
You don't want to give because I mean, I'll always be vague when I'm telling my stories, like an elevator pitch. But
this is still the opening.
I know, but you probably don't want to give away your story because there are people that are assholes out here, and there's over 200 people watching. You probably don't want to give away this thing that you love because somebody might be an asshole and try to use
on
it.
them though, because I'm writing it on Final Draft, and Final Draft has built-in copyright processes, also built-in timestamps of when you do and don't start writing. So I have clear. If anyone wants to steal this idea, that's fine. You're not going to do it as well as I am, and also I'm going to have clear-cut evidence that I started writing it before you did. So you're going to lose the lawsuit.
So it's like man versus society then?
It's man versus society and man versus man, because it's that kind of what we talked about. He's caught, like what I talked about, that theme that I really like, that you talked about in your story, the pressure between doing what you know is right and doing what you feel is right is his. So,
for those of you that are not aware, so these are the 6 story conflicts, the main conflicts that you see in a story. So there's man versus man versus society, man versus himself, man versus fate, man versus nature, man versus supernatural. And then, I mean, depending on what part of psychology you lean more towards, I actually like Jungian. I think that he's brilliant. But so then you have these type of archetypes. These are the typical male archetypes. And then these are the female mother types. I actually relate more to the male archetypes. And I like the way that they are set up more as compared to the female ones. I've just never connected to them. And they're very different at the way that they are set up. So I usually just ignore these, and I
always have. I would add
both the male and female characters.
I would add. I think Jung leaves out the lone wolf. I think that's a really important one that Jung's.
Those are aspects of each character, which is why, I'm all right with that because like a king can be a loner. There can be the lone warrior. There can be the lone magician. There can be the
that's fair. I like a blend. I actually really like a blend of man versus society with man versus self, which is really what my screenplay is. I think that's what I do. That's typically what I do is a blend of man versus society, man versus self.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely with a bent on man versus society. And I write warriors. I write almost occasionally.
What's funny is I was actually talking to someone when we all first became friends, and I was specifically all of us in this group, and I'm like, this is who you are, this is who this is, and I specifically said, I was like, Jessi in our group is the warrior.
Yep. And my
100% the warrior archetype. That is 100% you. And I without even me having to say it, you said it. This is you to a T.
whether I write female characters or male characters, they are either warriors or they are characters who fit another archetype better, but due to circumstance are forced to become warriors. I don't mean just literally warriors fighting wars, but they are forced to find the warrior within themselves, I guess is the way. So even if they start out with a different archetype, they all become warriors.
And somebody said it, Anna's the wise woman. I am the magician.
I was going to say Anna's the magician. That's exactly what I was going to pick. I was like, of that list, Anna's the magician.
And I am the lone magician. I am the one that and this is the person I was talking to. I specifically talking to him because I'm like, you are the king archetype. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and I'm, it was funny that I'm the magician and I'm the one explaining it to you because I'm like, I am bringing you this knowledge to explain certain. And it was actually, I was explaining your personality to someone. And I was like, this is why you don't understand Jessi's actions, is because this is the way that everyone is different. But this is Jessi to a T. And this is why Jessi is reacting this way. This is why she's doing things this way.
Now I definitely, when you started, even when you're being super vague, I was like, I think I know who you're talking about. Now I definitely know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly. And I was like, so this is you. I was like, this is Jessi. This is me. And this is this other person. And this is why everyone is acting that way. And it gave the person in this situation a very different outview on this particular situation and how we were all reacting in a different way. And so I was like, it's funny. And it was even commented on by the person I was explaining it to. And I was like, yes, this is how I know who we are, because I'm the one that I see this thing. I see this thing and I see this thing. And I obviously am self-aware enough to know who I am in this situation. And I'm explaining it in this way and bringing the knowledge, because the magician is always the person, in a story, they can be the main character of the story, and you can have the main character. I mean, you can go through, and I have a really great paper where it has all the research on it that I got from my teacher in college, my professor, that when I was learning about these archetypes and stuff. But it has examples of when the main character of a show or a movie where it's based around the warrior character type or the king archetype or the magician or the lover. Yeah. And those movies are very different. Even if it does have the same conflict, it's going to be different based on the character. And so I'm like, of course I'm this character because I'm the one that's explaining it to this character, and the magician usually is drawn to a king archetype character and will explain things. What?
What's so funny about this though is recontextualizing this and knowing exactly what you're talking about and hearing it, explained, hearing this part of that story. It's funny because through talking to you and the other person who this is all about, it's I obviously lived one aspect of it. You lived another aspect, and the third person a different one. And it's so interesting to me how that has, it's learning more and more about it, and having you break it down this way, I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense, because that explains to me why we've gotten along, me and the king, why our relationship has been the way it is and why we've gotten along on certain aspects. And it also actually makes a ton of sense why he has had trouble to see certain things from my perspective, because it's that sort of, what would you call, archetype difference, that sort of codified difference in who we are.
Butting heads on that. And that's where it's and see, this is why I think, it makes sense, and it can stand, it works not only in narrative aspects, but in real life, why there are these different archetypes and why you can have these different types of conflicts, and then how archetypes react differently to said concepts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's funny that I am being extremely vague, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Or people figured it out.
No, you figured it out. Nobody else.
Yeah. But I was also a part of this whole, conversation, etc.
Well, I mean, it's still going on because none of us have changed. And this is why it's I think people will change their point of views on different things, but you can't change who you are. You can't change which archetype you're born into. But when you go into the different types of archetype, it's you have, actually, let me pull up this image because this might actually help. Let me find, because when you look at the way a character or an archetype, the king archetype, there's a good type that it can go to. There's also the bad type. All of these can be either positive or negative type of characters. Male. Let me find it.
Well, it's so funny you talk about that, because that's on a more individualized and specific level, that, because these just like you said, you can't change who you are, and these archetypes, as much as you can change your perspective, you can change your behaviors and attitudes and stuff like that, but these built-in personality things, I think people would do to spend more time learning these about themselves and learning to accept these things about themselves, rather than everyone trying to change themselves into this one single unified ideal of what it means to be, a good, decent person. There have always been people in my life who've said like that I'm wrong for feeling anger the way I do and expressing anger the way I do. And then I found Krav Maga, and it was a place where people said, no, this is exactly how you should express anger in a healthy, positive, and constructive way. And I was like, oh shit, this is not for everybody, but it is for me. And the people who are telling me, oh, you should just do yoga and breathe through it, don't get who I am. But like,
I don't know if people can see this, but so it's like, okay, so we have, this is a bit, so this is the king, the warrior, the magician, and then the lover. So it's like you have both sides of it. It's like, so if we look at like the king archetype, the high chair tyrant, the weakling prince, then you have like the divine child, which is, their descent into this, and then you have the tyrant and then the weakling. So it's like you have the the king, that's the king archetype that's getting shit done, but it's being done in a negative way, and then you have like a person that's a king, but they're a weakling and they're they're afraid, and then you have like the ultimate of what they are, the best possible embodiment of their archetype, and then you have it for like, look, what is it, sorry, it's like super blurry on my end. Is it blurry for you?
No, it's just pretty clear on this end. Do you need me to read anything?
No, it's because it's my computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the grandstand bully or the coward. So you have those two sides. So it's like you have, when you go too far and you're too much of, you have that fighter in you, or you're afraid of the bad things that you can do and you become a coward in that sense. And then so then there's the hero character, the warrior character is when they're the hero. Let's see. Oh, I see there's a debate. I will address that in a minute. But then you have the sadist and then the masochist, right? And then you have the warrior in its fullest.
Yep.
And then you have like the musician, the know-it-all trickster, which I 100% was when I was a child. And then you have the dummy. And this is not meaning like you're dumb. It's when you play dumb.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so Marilyn Monroe always played a dumb blonde. She was a very smart woman.
She
knew exactly what she was doing.
She
played the dumb blonde.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then you have the precious child, the detached manipulator, the denying innocent one, and then you have the magician in its fullest. So the detached manipulator is like, this is when people say, oh, when you have no emotion, but then you can manipulate a situation to get what you want. That actually a lot of women get accused of doing, but I think that it's in different ways. And this is why like the archetype work, I mean, I think all of these are interchangeable with women and men, but when this was made, the society was very different. Mm-hmm. And then, the denying innocent one, again, that's like Marilyn Monroe wasn't innocent, but it's like when, she's, denying her intelligence and playing stupid at certain things. And then the lover, I feel like these are the people that I have like the least in common with, and I don't really interact with these type of people. Yeah. But it's like the dreamer, the mama's boy, like the Oedipal child, and the addicted lover, and the impotent lover, and then the lover to its fullness.
The funny thing is I was more like in my like immature stages. I always grew up like a dreamer, very much a dreamer. And then as I grew, I actually had a lot more, like, I definitely strayed towards the high chair tyrant over like the grandstand bully, in my like growth so it's funny because like in my growth, I was very aqueous between, a variety of them. Like I definitely had know-it-all trickster elements as well. Like I was very aqueous between multiple ones, except the hero and the warrior, like the warrior archetype. And as I've grown up, I've grown into the warrior, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that's just
that's one of the things I've always found about myself too. Like, and that's one thing that's interesting. Like, is there's, and that's always been the case with me. I think when it's come to like personality tests and breakdowns and whatnot is that I'm very multifaceted to the point where, and this is what I was talking about with Jeff the other day, I was like, I have never known, and one of the reasons Jeff and I work, I have never met a single person who gets me in all of my iterations. Everybody else I've been with, there's some version of me that they just don't get, and they therefore they think it's fake or not really me or not like the true me or something because they don't understand it. So like my shitty ex, I delineate them as my shitty ex and my recent ex, didn't really get that warrior part of me. And that manifests a lot in I call it my persona Jessi, how I present myself in groups around other people. That's where I think like you can see that archetype in me the clearest. And he didn't like it, didn't buy it, couldn't accept it. The last one was sort of the opposite, where he saw me as this like he saw me as this warrior woman, but didn't see the soft lover side of me as much, or didn't understand what to do with that. Like I said, Jeff's the only person who's like, he has a facet for all of my facets. And I'd say argue Jeff too, like, is another person who's a little bit aqueous when it comes to for those who wonder why I keep saying aqueous, it's just my fancy way of saying fluid. With some of these types, which is always and I think that's something that I like and it's reflective in my writing too, and why I said I like that man versus society with a healthy dose of man versus self. Is I probably to a fault overly complicated sometimes, but I've always had trouble seeing myself in just one mold or archetype.
Well, see, what I do is I make sure that I always have three going on. So I have man versus man. So obviously that's like the main character, and then they have a villain. They have an arch nemesis because that is a physical threat that is very apparent to both me and then the people that I'm trying to tell the story to. Yeah. And it's like in Star Wars. Okay, the man versus man, Darth Vader versus Luke, or Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan. And then I always do these three. I have man versus man versus society, and man versus himself. So the main character is trying to overcome something within themselves. So that's an internal struggle. There is something going on in society. There's something bad. That is the what does that mean? Meta. Like that is the overall thing that they need to overcome in the end. And then there's the man versus man. So there's the bad guy that they have to face off. There's something, and this is in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker is trying to become a Jedi. So he has that internal battle within himself where, he's reckless. He has no patience. He's got to learn. So he has that to overcome. And then, I'll check that out in a minute. Let me see what's going on over here. Then you have man versus society, the evil empire versus the rebellion. Okay, so you got that. Then you have man versus man, obviously Luke versus Vader. You also have the whole fate aspect of it, and then you do have supernatural, and then there are times when you do have man versus nature. Star Wars is fucking amazing. You can also interchange this out with like Lord of the Rings. But what on earth is going on here?
You know what I just realized about my writing as you were talking about that? I realized that when I have a man versus man narrative, I tend to stray away from the man versus self. And when I have a man versus self, I tend to stray away from the man versus man. I think I like in my own writing to either have a main character that's less changing, that doesn't necessarily have as deep or why can't I words right now? Or intense or cathartic of a struggle against themselves, but has a more intense one against somebody else. And I use that other person to reflect the growth that that character has. Or I go the other route and have that struggle be much more about focus on that character and how that character develops against his or her own struggle without a direct one-to-one enemy, but just that societal enemy or that monolithic, force they're fighting against.
This isn't a website. This is what I wrote up. If you just Google archetypes, I took a screenshot from, I always have an info page whenever I'm writing, and I'm writing my comic book right now, so I have all of this. This is from me. So if you guys want to take a screenshot, go right ahead. This is elements of storytelling to never forget.
Also, this is hilarious. I think this illustrates the difference in our process so clearly, where you are really thoughtful about your planning process and you consider all these elements before you really dive into the creation of the body of work itself. In the NaNoWriMo world, National Not Writing Month, they call them plansters and pantsters. So people who, September's rolls around, okay, National Novel Writing Month's 2 months away. Let me pre-write my my novel and have like every chapter mapped out by the time November 1st hits. And then there's like me, who's like, shit, it's October 31st. I should probably figure out what I'm going to spend an entire month writing.
Well, see, I leave it to the last minute because I have this anytime I want something, anytime I have my heart set on something, it always gets fucked up. So instead of jinxing myself, I always leave things to the last minute. And even it's like if I have a plan, the second I tell someone, it gets fucked up.
That sounds familiar. That sounds like my life too.
And so I just don't. But so with this, I'm like, I can't afford to do something like that when I'm telling the story, because honestly, I think of EFAP and I'm like, that's my favorite show, like my favorite podcast to listen to on the internet. But I see how those guys just like absolutely rip into stuff, and like especially like watching like the deep analysis into Star Wars, and I'm just like, I don't want somebody to have to do that to my work. And it was actually kind of a wake up call, and I'm like, it's a really good devil's advocate kind of thing, because I'm like, okay, what would how if I showed my script to Jessi, what problems would Jessi have? And I have to try to get into Jessi's mindset. But okay, let me pitch something to you, Jessi. Let's say it's me and you, and we're playing like the Kirk and Spock type of characters. I'm the Spock character, if this was my short film, and like you and I are walking in an orchard. Let's say the plot of this is, because I agree with you where it's like if there's a man versus himself, and then like man versus society. So this would be the twist with the audience, is trying to figure out which character is telling the truth, or which character is the hero and which one is the villain.
I like that a lot.
Let's say we're walking through this orchard, and we're trying to figure out if I'm lying, or if you're right and I'm lying, or if I'm right and you're insane. And it's like we're walking and you're talking to me. I'm I'm the magician character. You're the warrior type of character. And let's say something bad happened. We're not going to give away details, kind of like how earlier when we were talking about the thing and you knew exactly what I was talking about. So it's where we don't discuss directly what the problem is, and we're trying to figure out, so it would be if it was your character and let's say if we're walking through an orchard and it sounds like we're either in a mental institution and I'm your doctor, and you're trying, and we're having a conversation, and we're, at the end we'll figure it out. But it's like an internal struggle where it's like, you're like, if you're saying like, oh, okay, did I actually do this? Am I really here? Are you really here? Am I locked up? Or am I actually crazy? Or did this stuff actually happen? And it's like based on the way our dialogue works is how you figure it out. And so the more information gets said, then you find out maybe it's like, maybe your character killed the political leader because maybe it was like they're going to become the Hitler of this society. We'd obviously, I would be an alien. So we would both be aliens, different races. We would have a different name for humanity, different name for a planet. And it's like, okay, let's say potentially you don't know if you did this or not. You don't know if it was actually right because you're trying to get the information. I know all the information. Mm-hmm. And so you're asking questions and you're rehashing this. Okay, let's say potentially the issue is you're in a mental institution because you killed this person. Your argument is you killed that person because they were going to be the new Hitler and they were going to be taking over and that society has lost its mind. Right. So you are enemy number one because you potentially killed this beloved leader. So there you go, the man versus society. Everyone is against you, but you could potentially be right. There is the man versus man where you are having this conversation with me, my character, and the doctor type of character, and you're trying to explain to me what happened, and I'm telling you, or based on my answers, you're going to try to figure out if I'm lying to you, and I'm trying to manipulate you into thinking that you're crazy, or you're actually crazy. And it's trying to find the flaw in my responses to your questions and your examples of what's going on.
Like
so that would have all three of it and just be two characters walking through an orchard.
I like this a lot. This sounds very up my alley.
And so this, but you see how you could do like just a very, very, very simple one scene telling a story in that, and that it's part of a bigger thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Agree 100%. I think that's I like your balance. I actually think that this is something Jeff and I talk about a lot is wanting to go and read Joseph Campbell. You know, he talks about a lot of these kinds of things too. And
I have that book right behind me.
And oh, really, Here with 1,000 Faces, or a different one? Because he's written a few.
I have all of them, but the one I have right behind me, it's the mythology one.
The mythology, okay, cool. Because I want to read all of his work and what I know a lot. I've read excerpts, and I've and some of it, and I've read a lot of the synopses, and this is very much a lot of what Joseph Campbell talks about are these overarching archetypes and the same stories that we've been telling for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and why they resonate. And I think what you hit on, that blend of man versus society, man versus man, and man versus self, is part of the formula that Jeff and I have been examining of what makes these universally palatable works, these things that become your franchises or your films or your books that endure in the consciousness for forever. Like you point out, Star Wars has all three of those elements. Obviously Luke is struck.
Well, Star Wars has all six of these elements.
That's very true. That's very.
So does Lord of the Rings. So does
that's like I wonder.
I could go through like a bunch of franchises and explain how this would be.
I wonder if maybe the blend of all six is part of that perfect formula. Because if you look at Lord of the Rings has all six as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wonder if it's the the finding that blend of these universal concepts and universal archetypes maybe is sort of that key to that universally appealing formula, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I saw somebody say like, "Oh, the Hitler one is so trope." Okay, so let's change that then, and it would still go against society. Let's say, okay, obviously Jessi and I are both women. We would be playing female characters. Let's say the setup, or as you get through the story, and it's still like I'm the doctor character, and Jessi is talking, and she's trying to figure out if she's actually crazy or if what happened actually happened. Mm-hmm. Let's say she killed her husband, or she killed. Oh, we were on the topic of like cuties. Okay, let's say her child was murdered by someone, and so she killed the person that murdered her child. Now, even though justifiably we can all look at that, it's like, yeah, if somebody killed my kid, I would kill them too. But as far as society goes, you would be locked up because you murdered this person. Let's say there was no. My character would say, "Oh, well, there's no evidence," and Jessi would say, "Oh no, I know that person killed them because I walked in, or I was coming to my house and I saw them shoot them, and I acted on impulse and I fought them and I won and I executed them because I saw them kill my child." Yeah. So even though Jessi would be the one going to court in that situation, or Jessi's character would be going to court in that situation because she took law into her own hands, and they would have to prove what happened, and if that person actually murdered the child, and then Jessi would be on trial, or her character would be on trial because she killed someone instead of calling the police or upholding the actual law. So that would all aside, but society, that would be again man versus society, because murder is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But so you could do that type of role, and so it would be at the end, the one character is having an arc. And then, or it could be that let's say Jessi's character is the one that is, let's say in a way, we find out what happens. Okay, so there can be two solutions to this problem. One, character A, which would be Jessi's character, and then character B, which would be my character. So let's say character A finds out that they did it. They 100% did it, but they could also be lying. They did it, but then there was another factor that comes into play, and it changes the entire situation. Even though we found out, okay, problem A was that, okay, is character crazy, or did the fact actually happened. Character B has the other pieces of the puzzle that character A doesn't have. So that's why it's going man versus man. One person has something the other one wants, which in this case would be information. And then they solve problem A, but then character B has B information that introduces that. And you still have those things. And maybe that other thing, maybe it doesn't have to be one of these three things. It could be one of these three things, you know? And I think it's something that new movies are severely lacking, but it's something that is very, very doable. And this is, I've been more inclined to thinking about this because I'm like, and people say this to us as criticism, and it's like, well, you guys have never made a movie. And it's like, well, obviously it wasn't a movie, but I mean, I made a short film. But if I could do something like this and make this happen, it would throw all of that stuff out the door. And honestly, that's something that I've always wanted to do. I've never aspired to be a YouTuber. I've never even aspired to be a filmmaker. I've always loved telling stories. And my friends always loved to hear me tell stories when I was a kid. And whenever we would like play house or play dress up or play a game, I would be the one that comes up with the story for it. And so I think that this is something that, I mean, because that's how George Lucas started off. He started off with, THX, and that was, a short film. So I feel, I don't know, the more I talk about this, the more I want to do it.
You should. I'm on board 100%, in whatever capacity you need, in front of the camera or behind. Plus, I have equipment. I have very, very nice sound equipment.
Let me answer this one. So is it man versus technology? Another one. No, that would be man versus nature, because technology, technically, it's something that a human made.
Yeah. That's the way that, the other way I've heard man versus nature, man versus environment. So
yes. Said that, but I always do, in my mind, I know what that means. So I just say man versus nature. So environment is as they're interchangeable to me.
Yeah, nature's the number one. Well, it used to always be the number one for man versus environment. Nowadays, because of the way technology is, man versus technology has become very prevalent. But yeah, it's all the man versus environment, which actually a lot of the time, almost always, I would say, man versus nature, man versus environment when it's technology works better when you have a man versus society or man versus. It almost doesn't stand on its own. It almost needs to have the man versus society or man versus man element. Who created the technology, who controls the technology. Whereas man versus nature, I mean, we have sort of 127 hours as man versus nature in a very pure form. So
all of Castaway is man versus nature.
Another great example. Castaway, humongously man versus nature.
I want to find, because
in ways if you look at Black Mirror, which is all very much man versus technology, everywhere in Black Mirror, it's either there's somebody or some group behind the technology, or it's the way the technology has changed society. So I personally think that man versus technology doesn't stand on its own.
No, I think I don't need to put it in there as environment. I know when it's man versus nature, that's whatever environment that they are in.
Exactly. Whatever.
It's just, in my mind, I go to nature. Nature doesn't mean I'm out in the nature wilderness. It's if I'm standing in a room that's full of computers, that's nature. That's the environment that you're in. I just prefer to say nature because that's the more traditional aspect of this as compared to putting environment. But you know what I mean.
I do. Yep.
Well, I mean, what if so we wouldn't have to take a trip up to my dad's orchard, if it was just one of those trails, because I remember you posted something that you and your friend went hiking. We would have to make sure that there's no other humans.
The thing is, I have it's not that long of a drive. We could do this in a weekend. I mean, depending on the thing is, it's the kind of thing where we could plan around, even if we couldn't shoot it all in one weekend, even if it took multiple trips up there to go and do it. It's not a big deal. We don't. It's not like we're working under a deadline or a timeline or something. I think, I personally think because that's the environment in which this seed was planted for this, and that's where you visualize it. I think we should go there and actually shoot it on location there. Personally, we could. Once we talk about it, we'll figure it out. I think that's the kind of decision, like that's the kind of decision we don't even have to make until the script's finalized, you know. But I think like for the storytelling,
I wouldn't want to be in this. I would want to be the one that's like directing it and setting it up. But I feel like if we were to get this going,
I also do. I do have
you know.
True. I think it would work really, really well. I do have a ton of actor friends if you decide not to be in it, though. So I'm always happy to put. And that's something we can try too. Actually, I mean, that's honestly even a thing we can try if we were going to do this. We'll do screen tests. You know, I'll get my actor friends who I think will be right for the part together. We'll just shoot some screen, and we'll tell them right off the bat, be like, look, we're just trying to figure out who's, you know, how this is going to work and whatnot. We'll do a few screen tests and see what we like the best.
The only thing with that is you would have to explain to your friends, I'm not mean to be mean. I'm just very, very harsh, and I believe in tough love.
Full deal. I mean, that's the thing. My friends are actors. They've worked with directors. They've worked with, you know, harsh directors and whatever directors. Plus, I can also be, as someone who's worked on, you know, directing and acting, I can also serve as like a translator, if that makes sense. Like, okay, I see what you want. Here's how to tell the actor to get that from them. If that
I feel like me and you right now, it's like when, I mean, this is a very bold like comparison, but I was like when when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are making movies when they're in college.
It's really true in a lot of ways. It's kind of funny. It's like, oh yes, I will do the.
When they're like helping each other make films, and that's how they got. Because what if we did? I feel like, to infiltrate these people, not necessarily to infiltrate, but it's like I should like look at the requirements for like the Cannes Film Festival, mainly because I just want to go to France and go to Cannes. But I can look at the requirements for it. But I would want to come up with the story first and then look at the shooting aspects after it's all done.
Of course. That's one of the things I love about film as a medium too, is like we don't have to have any of this figured out before we just write the script. You know, we can sit down, write the script, start writing tomorrow. We don't have to have location, timeline, actors, budget, any of the shit figured out. We just have to tell the story, and then, you know, adjust the script as needed to fit our constraints of the creation. You know, so. Well, then Ryan Dyer, I do not and have never sang "Saving Me" by Nickelback. If you want to, there are other Nickelback songs I do and have sang. If you want to hear me sing a Nickelback song, you'll just have to pick one of the ones that I actually like. Yes, I do like some Nickelback songs. No, I'm not ashamed to admit that. But if you want to hear me sing one, you'll just have to guess one of the ones that I actually do like, and then maybe. Sorry, I don't know if it was Ryan Dyer the last time, but this is like the second time in a week people have been like, Jessi, sing "Saving Me" by Nickelback. And I'm like, I don't sing that song. I don't like that song.
Well, I'm trying to think, because it would have to be where, because I mean, it would, the smallest cast possible, like 2 people would, you know, be the minimum. I don't know how much would be the maximal. I would want it just be 2 people. Maybe if like you have to use like a voice for like something else, or like maybe if there's a scene to show a flashback. Yeah. But it would have to be something very minimal, and it revolves around the conversation between the 2 characters and trying to figure out which one is telling the truth, which one is lying, and also which one is the reality. And then, like I said, one character has certain answers, or one character has all of the answers, or except for one, and then like try as the audience trying to figure that out. But if it was like a Spock and Kirk type character, but I would always set it as they're both aliens because I like sci-fi.
That works for me. Hey, I have a friend who does effects makeup, so
it wouldn't have to be that much. It would have to, like, I could just put on contacts and like paint my face blue or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I can show you her work though. Like she's I mean, like, also, like, let's say we need an injury or a cut, she can do that kind of effects makeup too. So if we needed, any, like, she's worked on, and she also has done professional costuming and actually award-winning cosplay. So
yeah, that's cool. Well, the thing that I always try to think of how, if I would try to plan out as using as little outside sources as possible, so that way I can do all of this myself, and that way I have a bigger budget for like camera or editing, if it be music and stuff like that, and getting the rights to certain stuff. So as far as like costuming, it would be you and I going into a thrift store and trying to find something and me adjusting it slightly to make it work.
Side note, some of these people will work for free. Like that's part of it too. Is like some of these people will work for free.
I would never do that to someone.
I mean, no, I mean, the thing is, it's not even, don't think of it like that. Think of it, the thing about filmmaking and why I never feel bad about asking people to work for free if I can't pay them is, the thing is, what I would do, you can do deferred. I mean, if we're making a festival film, you can do deferred payment options for people, which is totally, whatchamacallit, which a lot of people are fine with in the industry. They're like, yes, if you make money, we make money. That's fine. We're not going to expect you to pay us on your budget, but if you make money, we make money. And then there's also the other thing with a festival film kind of thing, even if you don't have the budget to really pay people. Now, that aside, we can crowdfund for this film and make more than enough to satisfactorily compensate a costumer, etc., and still have plenty to spend on the other facets.
Well, see, I would, as far as the costumes, I would want to do it myself because, like, I even though it's like I'm not getting married, I would be a total bridezilla about it.
That's fine.
You know, like that would be, I would go thrifting and hopefully it would be like somebody that I know, or like let's say if it's me and you. Yeah. You and I would go to thrift stores. We would go and I would find something, and then it would click with me. Like I would touch it or I would see it and I would be like, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And it would be that aha moment, or else I'm going to be frustrated the entire time. And I'm not going to like that. I'm my only worst enemy when it comes to being a perfectionist.
Understandable. That'll be really interesting for us to work on a film together. Then it'll be really interesting on a multitude of levels, because one of the things that you will find constraining about filmmaking at first and then freeing as you do it, if it's something you do, depending on the process and how much we do of it, is not being able to control every facet will frustrate you at first. But ultimately realizing that there are plenty of facets that you don't need to be responsible for, but in fact can have other people do better than you could do it, will ultimately become freeing. Because as you already discovered once doing it, it is a lot of fucking work to be every role behind the camera. And when you can find the people you trust to do some of those jobs, and the real experts who really do those jobs, it is very liberating, because you're like, well, this is shit I just don't have to worry about anymore. And it's so nice. Let me tell you, it is so nice. But yeah, that's other things too. Like, and again, resource-wise too, like I also know people who can score a film. I know, like, so again, people, even if you want to pay them and whatnot, it's just nice to have those connections and stuff. Like, basically, you don't have to worry about going in blind and looking for like an editor who you're going to hate and not be able to work with, or a sound person who doesn't get your vision that you can't really talk to. Like, I know people.
See, when it comes to music, I'm like, I was trying to do this for my art videos, and I'm like, every sound, everything works. I'm like, I can see how that works. I can see how that works. I am so tone deaf. I am like, the music, it's like I would have to have somebody else. Like, let's say we've shot this film, it's all done, it's being edited, we're just gonna have to add the score to it. That would be where I would have other people. I would probably be there, but I would have like somebody else say, pick, like, do you like A, B, or C better? And then like somebody else would have to pick that, because I'm probably going to be like, they all sound exactly the same to me.
I am good at that stuff, so I can be the music director if you'd like. But I also love the idea anyway. I really like the idea anyway of certain things about, like, I mean, test audiences are important. That's. But yeah, I do think that we can put together something really cool. And I'm definitely happy to, take a back seat on this. Like, this is your project. This is your concept. I'm here in a supporting role. So I really like it. I'm really on board.
I like how I had this whole plan that we're going to talk about
Right, we had like a whole list of topics and like
We're
good
like,
ones
we're going to talk about Gina Carano getting harassed. We're going to talk about cuties. We're going to talk about Henry Cavill and the new Enola Holmes. And then we just get on to
Fuck it, we're spending 3
filmmaking.
fucking hours talking about shit we want, and now we're making a movie together now, apparently.
Yes, that is what's been decided in this.
I
But
love
guys, I am going to have to go because I have a stream with Drunk
Ooh,
3PO and like
your stream soon. I gotta pee like a motherfucker, so.
well, so everyone, this stream is going to be unlisted and then re-uploaded onto my secondary channel, That Star Wars Girl Live. So if you are not subscribed to that channel, go subscribe over there. That's where I re-upload my live streams. And also, if you missed an episode of the Matriarchy, the links for every single episode are in the description of this video and the ones I re-upload. Next week is our 20th episode.
Woo, that'll be exciting. We should figure out something special to do for it.
We should. Maybe we can do it together in person or something.
Ooh, I would like that. That'd be fun. We do owe you a trip to see your lovely new house too.
I know, but it would be on your channel.
All right, so you can come up here. That's my door is always open to you.
Well, we can figure it out. Well, I mean, we could. That would be the most bizarre thing is if you came down here and then we did a stream
Oh my God, we streamed in your house.
on your channel, but in my house.
That would be fucking funny. That would be hilarious.
We can figure it out. Let me check and see if there's any super chats, but I am gonna have to end the stream, guys, because I have to get going. I gotta get ready for my stream with Drunk 3PO. Let's go. And it was just from Maddie Hammond. Thank you. I'm sorry that we got kind of sucked into the conversation. Let's see. Thank you for the super chat. I'm 5'9", Anna. I tower over you. Hashtag tall girl life. Oh yeah, you tower over me and Jessi.
Yeah, you tower over me too. I'd have to look up at you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much for everyone for being here. Again, this is going to be re-uploaded onto my secondary channel, That's Star Wars Girl Live. The link for that is in the description of this video and every single other video I do. So if you ever want to watch my older live streams, go check it out. And Jessi, is there anything you want to plug?
Everyone needs to go subscribe to Shit Pancake the Cat. Yes, you heard me right. Shit Pancake the Cat. He is awesome. He is my new channel, and he's great. He's fun, funny, adorable, and just what you need to break the monotony and the fucking culture war we live in every single day.
There you go. And again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, have a great rest of your day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. And may the force be with you because we are really, really, really going to need it. Bye, everyone.
Well, you're assuming that I train Ray.
Exactly. Sneaky.
Do I?